So we will begin the planning board meeting for August 10th, 2021. This is being conducted in a hybrid manner per the general laws. We are recording this and we'll post a copy online. If anybody else is recording, that's fine. You just need to let us know. Peter? Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. 7 o'clock, town planners report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doherty. I met with Mr. R. Rubinskis in some vacant land off Granville Road, looking to construct a residence up there. It is compromised in terms of access, so we were looking at alternative means. I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head, but this is rear acreage. Sure, I apologize. I'll do my best and I'll try to adjust my projection. Rick called the up. College Highway, the former Waterman farm building out there. She's, I think, has run the cinnamon bun operation. Thinking about perhaps looking at that for zone change purposes. Mr. John Valancourt and I have been corresponding, and we spoke today. He had reached out in terms of inquiring on the process of submitting bylaw changes to the town, looking forward towards the future and making sure that heavy vehicle traffic and operation is managed in terms of restricting, I'm going to call it, street side parking and potential Jake break usage in residential areas. Mr. Bob Stevens and I spoke. He is a butter to the Greens East subdivision, and part of that decision included some buffer zone plantings. At least one of the buildings, one of the houses out there is nearing completion, and he wanted to inquire about the timing when those improvements or buffer zone plantings would be installed. I let him know that I would both raise it here and also reach out to the developer as we look to make sure there weren't any mechanisms put into place to compel a sooner timeline than, well, worst case scenario, acceptance. I received a call from Diane King offering to extend herself as a volunteer for the upcoming master plan subcommittee. She wanted to throw her hat in the ring for consideration. Mr. Russ Pike from the American Legion called discussing opportunities for cellular tower construction on that property, given that they have some higher topography in the area. Told them that that's a developing discussion. We'll be taking a little bit further, looking at what options may. And lastly, I met with Tom Saunders. I think I may have raised this at a previous meeting, but he's representing a group looking at constructing solar array at a portion of the Tilcon earth excavation site off of Hudson Drive. And that's about all I have to say about that.
Open meeting law complaint?
Sure. I did receive, thank you very much, a copy of an open meeting law complaint submitted by Mr. James Sullivan, Ranch Estates. And so this pertains to the 2013 discussion regarding the release of a lot from the protective covenants for the subdivision and, if you will, the subsequent release of the remaining lots from that covenant. So this relates to the dilapidated condition of the roadways that were not completed at that subdivision, and the apparent reluctance of the developer to reach completion with that.
So, as we've done with various. I'll respond. I've been communicating with Jim anyways, so I'll respond to it. I think it's due sometime in the middle of the month. I forget when, or toward the 20th, probably 19th or 20th. So I'll respond to him. I just need a motion from the board to respond to the open meeting law complaints.
Marcus Phelps, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay. So I will pass that along when I send it on. Basically, just to give you a gist of it. One is, I don't think it was properly filed with the town. Two, it has to do with 2013. I think we're outside the 30 days. And also, I don't think there was anything wrong in the minutes. This complaint is about the minutes. I think, were probably done by Ruth and reflected exactly what happened in the course of the meetings. Something got signed that shouldn't have been signed, is my understanding. And, I don't think that had anything to do with the meeting itself. I think the meeting is exactly what it said in the minutes. But he thinks otherwise, so we will address that. All right. Do we need to pause for a second, Jim, or are we good?
Mr. Chair, I think that's who was going to try to attend. Do you want to try to identify if he's on Zoom at the moment? So having said that much, if I don't hear a response, then we've done.
Yeah, I don't see him. Usually he has video. Don't see him.
Okay.
So we'll deal with that. We'll just remind me to take another look at that when we get to the public hearings.
Sure.
And we'll, or each public hearing, we'll address it in turn. All right, 7:05, public comment. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up today that's not on the agenda tonight? I'll first take people in the room, and then I'll turn to Zoom. So if you're on Zoom and you just use the hand raise function, I'll get to you once you've dealt with the folks in the room. Yeah.
First,
Hold on one second. If you could just do two things.
yeah,
Stand up if you could, and try to project your voice would be ideal so the people on Zoom can hear you.
I have laryngitis.
Okay.
Bad timing.
Here, can I ask you one thing then? Can you come and sit
Yeah.
right there? And hopefully that'll help with the folks on Zoom. Hopefully people can hear you here.
Thank you. My name is Trudy Giancola. I live at 17 Sawgrass Lane. I'm here with a few other Sawgrass residents. I have a letter to present to the board. The residents of Sawgrass are really unhappy with the progress being made on the west development. Since they've started east, all of the work on west has stopped. So they've not done the street light, the sign, the berms have never been finished. And we keep pushing for it, but as Jason Fiore said, they're pushing the barrel down the road, waiting for the planning board to approve different things. So I understand that at the September 5th meeting, Jason will be presenting some plan changes to the board. Prior to that, we've presented some requests to Jason that I wanted to make you all aware of. We we had a meeting with the residents. I have a letter signed by the residents. There are two main requests. First, we're not happy with the berms. They look like crap. And we're receiving complaints not only from Sawgrass residents, but we've received complaints from people on the ranch who have to look at those berms. So I've asked Tynek to develop a berm change plan, which I've attached. And he's gonna do that for each of the 5 berms on Sunnyside. And we'll present it to Jason, who will present it with his changes in September. But I just want you all aware that the residents unanimously are in support of this. And we really think that it's the developer's responsibility to complete this to standard. The other request is on lot 8, there is a required paved or walkway to place behind the development. It goes through private property and it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. So we have concerns that if there is a walkway, non-residents will think that that's something accessible. So what we're asking is to have that walkway moved from the lot to the open space behind the berms on Sunnyside. So it'll still have a designated walkway, but it won't create parking on the cul-de-sac. It won't create people walking through private property. And we think it'll be safer. The street is very narrow. So even if you have cars parked on one side of the street visiting people, you can't cross 2 cars. So we're really concerned. We've got a neighborhood with growing families and only one side is sidewalk.
Yep.
So that's
Okay,
presented.
yep,
Thank you.
perfect. So we'll make copies for everybody on the board, and then I don't, Jason hasn't submitted the request for the next
Right.
meeting yet, but
Right.
we'll certainly
Yes.
take it up.
And he'll have copies of this, plus a burn change from time.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I hope you feel better. Any other public comments here? We'll just start going back there. Ma'am?
Lamro, Grand Hill Road. I think we were out of line in the tirade in the last meeting of the high school. Severely out of line. You told us to start acting like a town. We were. We perceived a threat. There was things going on behind the scenes for over a year under code names. That's not for this town. And you insulted a room full of people who are voters. And
Okay.
I think you owe an apology.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I have one. I'm Beth Hunter Valley, 62 Davis Road. In the last meeting, the houses that were being built on the old. Off the you can laugh. My question is
ahead.
they had a lot of issues. They had, a roadway issue, an easement, and they were trying to make a shared driveway. Has any of that been corrected yet?
You're gonna have to refresh my memory as to what.
Okay, before they had, the houses, the 3 lots, and they didn't have a driveway, and they were gonna share they were gonna do a shared common driveway.
Yep.
So that was one of the issues. Another issue was because of the gravel and the other lot, I think it was lot 8, if I remember correctly. By your side of the property, he wanted just to put a stone in there.
Yeah, that was just an informal discussion that he came in for. He hasn't submitted anything as of yet to change anything.
The reason why I'm asking is because he has so many things that are going on in this town. And if he can't finish one of the tasks from one of the other places, why is he being moved to another one and having more things to do in this town? I think we should look at that and make sure before he goes to something else, that things are corrected and done correctly. He should be able to, what's the exact word I want to say?
So,
Finish one thing at a time and then move on. He said he had 400 jobs in a year. Hello there. I mean, yes, that's really nice and wonderful, but you have to have credibility. If you don't have that, then you don't have anything at all. And I don't think he should be going on to other projects if he can't finish it or fix his problems. I'm just saying.
So part of the issue that is in that letter is the 5K
Yep.
walkway.
okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Yep.
William Ferry from 17 Crowbrook Road. Have there been, or are there any discussions with the expansion at Mobile Steed Crossing? We're butters in that area, and we'd like to know if there's any talk with the discussion, especially into the conservation and free space areas.
I mean, I can't speak to conservation. I don't remember hearing it at conservation, but I haven't heard anything. I'll defer to.
There was a buffer zone expansion. I think that was for pool, for conservation a little over a week ago. So that's the only activity that I have either heard of or seen.
Well, we noticed that you're expanding and building more houses around the horseshoe, which that wall looks very good, except for they've never cleaned up any of the debris around there. There's piles of wood, which are like 500 feet long and stacked about 15 feet high. And I don't know if they're ever going to get to that, but I would think the neighborhood would be, those people living in those houses would be concerned about that. But we're concerned about the adjacent areas. If they're going to expand any further than that, we certainly would like to know, have public information about that. I'd like to make one other comment. You talked about a master plan here several times here, and I'd like to call your attention to the fact that I thought it was an absolute travesty when you allowed Big Y to cut down a virgin forest and put in a solar farm. I think anywhere that we trade trees for solar farms is not in the best interest of humanity. And I think your master plan ought to call us out and not allow any of that kind of stuff in the future.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, 28 Rails End. My question is this specific opening remarks in regards to the development proposed to the east of the Depot Square?
No, that'll be discussed in a public hearing later on. Any other public comments? Okay, I see one on Zoom. Gina Patterson, you can unmute yourself and state your public comment.
The question I have is what the board's plan is to implement and roll out the planning of the master plan. Given Levesque's comments at the Carvana, I think he made a really great point about reviewing bylaws, and I just wanted to know what the board's intent is.
Okay. Any other public comments before I move on? Sir?
One last question. Mr. Chairman, planning board address the Southwick Wildlife Management Area when they make their plans, or is that somebody else's responsibility?
When they make what?
So when you approve plans or make different decisions, the Southwick Management Area has different, different types of things that they've already made judgments on regarding, whether it be hawks, whether it be turtle, whether it be whatever it may be. It's the planning board considering with the federal and state wildlife management as declared.
If it applies to the property being in front of us, as far as what's being developed, then yes. We would, if it applied in any way to the property that's being developed, then we would. Otherwise, I'm not sure it has a role in the application that's before us.
Okay, the purpose of my question is the fact that there are, 30-some pages of what the Southwick Wildlife Management Area has considered as things that have to be addressed in any planning development, of which many show up in various planning developments. So I was just, I guess you have clarified your commission addresses those things.
They address them if they're brought to our attention or they apply to the property. Otherwise, I'm not aware of. You can certainly submit that, or you can provide a copy to us, and we'll certainly, take. Dick, I'm just going to mute you for a minute. You can unmute if you need to. So Dick is here.
Richard's here. Excellent.
All right.
He's with us.
So 715, map 107, parcel 2.1, Sodom Mountain Road. Jessica, why don't you come on up here? This is a continued public hearing.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jessica Allen. I'm with R. Levesque Associates. I don't know if you would like for me to share the site plan. I know that you've seen it a few times. I don't know if that's.
It's probably worth just getting it up there.
Sure. Okay.
While you're talking, at least it's there.
I don't know how you're going to be able to spread your voice that way.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You can use my loud Italian voice if that helps.
Yes.
Okay.
You can probably turn, a little bit that way. Get to everybody. I'm sure Jessica can hear you back there, right?
Yeah. I got ears.
Okay. A little distorted on the screen, just an FYI. I don't know if that's going to cause issues throughout the course of the night, but the projection is not scaled correctly.
There we go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just needed a second to catch up.
To catch up. Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so this is a proposed single-family house. We're here for a special permit. We're under the Agricultural and Conservation District, which requires a special permit for the building of a single-family house. You have seen this plan a few times. It has now gone through Conservation Commission and it's received its approval through Concom, so we are all set with that piece. I think that was what the last piece of what the board was waiting on. Let me just zoom out quickly and just show for the benefit of others. Soda Mountain Road, we have an access here with a culvert, proposed gravel driveway coming up to this to the house, proposed house here, retaining wall, stormwater management, all tied into this. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. I'm not sure if there's much more to discuss at the board level. As I said before, I think really we're just waiting for Concom's approval because it's mostly their jurisdiction in terms of the wetland replication and the crossings.
All right, I know my memory is that there's a couple things that need to be included in the special permit from some of the comments. I think there's something about the road that we need to make sure we're not extending. I forget there's a few things I think that need to be put into
So I know that under the Conservation Commission, there's going to be a declaration of restriction preventing any additional development in the riverfront area of Dismal Brook. That I am aware of.
All right.
So anything beyond this boundary is going to be undeveloped, remain undeveloped and have a restriction on it.
And the driveway is before the gate. I guess there's a gate on Sodom Mountain Road.
I think we discussed this earlier. I think the gate is about here,
That's
that location.
All right. Any questions from the board about it?
We hacked this one out pretty good.
I think so. All right. Any questions from the public on this application? All right, so I'd say,
Oh,
I'm sorry, thank you. Yep.
Cynthia Marshall, 45 Coast Hill. The Conservation Commission at their last meeting said what on this? I listened to it, but I didn't take notes.
So one of the conditions of the order of conditions under the Conservation Commission is there'll be a declaration of restriction that runs with the deed that will prevent any development beyond the riverfront area of the brook. So anything beyond, within that riverfront area is going to remain undevelopable, will run with the deed, will run with the land.
Okay, and the Conservation Commission approved it on that?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What's the frontage of that, on the building of the house?
it's on Sodom Mountain Road.
Yeah, something on the,
Pretty substantial. It runs this whole length right here.
You're not sharing anything.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The picture wrong
You can't read my mind? Right here. This is the frontage. This property line right here.
And it maybe continue further around.
And it,
Yeah.
yep, up here.
So it goes like this.
That's right.
It's not like a round circle. It goes, okay,
That's the frontage.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, you have it on your plans, it's greater than 600 feet and 200 is required. All right, any other questions? Okay, do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
Marcus Phelps, so moved.
Second?
Second.
All
for your second.
right, good job.
Wait a minute, you're gonna have
Morning,
to
Jack.
battle over that.
Yeah, we'll let John make the choice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, Dick, did I hear an aye from you? Oh, you had a. All right, so we'll draft up a decision, vote on it at the next meeting and vote on the decision and.
Okay, so the decision will be voted on the next, okay.
Yep.
September 7th.
Yep.
So should we plan to be in attendance for the vote
You don't
or
need to be, I don't
Okay.
think. It's just,
we may be here for other reasons, so
you
might be
may very
fine,
well.
so.
I just want to, with this one, because there are some conditions we want to put in there, I want to make sure that's all in writing before we vote.
No problem.
So,
Okay,
thank you.
Yep.
All right. 720A. 115 Fred Jackson Road. That is a estate lot special permit, common driveway special permit, and site plan approval, continued public hearing.
okay, so again, I believe this is not new, that you've seen this before several times. And we were waiting on approval from other boards and committees. So we have received approval by the Conservation Commission. It has also received a water quality certificate from Mass DEP under 1. And it also received a no-take from the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. So those 3 have been filed and are in place. Just as a refresher, the special permit is for an estate lot and for a common driveway. We've got 3 different parcels here that are. The estate lot is this parcel here, runs down here, and part of this common driveway here. The common driveway comes in, ends here. There is a second parcel here called parcel B, nope, conventional lot C, sorry. Frontage here, parcel line runs up here, over here, all the way back here. So it's 28.39 acres for conventional lot C. There potential could be a future single-family home. There's a building envelope here as part of that. There's also conventional lot A, which is going to remain as a field for right now. This has seen good review and scrutiny by the Conservation Commission, specifically because we had a former logging road from around the 1950s that had filled a wetland at one point. And so as part of this, there's mitigation of offsite, mitigation of the creation of a new wetland to offset what had been previously filled decades ago. So this is, again, single family home, common driveway coming in here. The red is the wetland area coming in with a driveway and a proposed envelope. That is the big picture.
And you say conservation signed off on it the last meeting?
Yes. Concom, Mass DEP, and NHESP.
That's right, we're waiting on all those, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may, did Conservation assign a bond? Do you know if they assigned a bond?
I was not brought to my attention that they had.
I spoke with Gene, I was hoping if you were to just get it
Sure.
through your channel, that project was bonded for 10,000. I think there's a standard for residential construction through conservation, perhaps a consideration if the stormwater piece is discussed tonight.
Yeah, we don't
So we're
have,
not doubling up on that effort.
Is there a stormwater permit? And as part of the project?
I'm looking to see.
We don't know.
An application was submitted. We're just dotting a few i's procedurally.
Yeah, it'd be good if we don't duplicate the bond. Conservation has a bond, if we think it's adequate.
Just under something,
Essentially.
You have time before the next meeting, right?
Yes.
Seen those before? Draft the decision? No?
Yes, but for a different reason.
Hmm.
The advertisement doesn't have the stormwater.
I was gonna say it never did.
And there's a stormwater permit that was filed.
Yeah,
with
and
it.
earth excavation, I believe. Or at least that's what's on the agenda. Is there an earth? Let me just see if that's checked out. Regardless of whether,
It's not a
oh, I'm
large
sorry,
quantity.
regardless of what it is, Jessica, it's sort of gonna be irrelevant. In timing standpoint, right? So we will advertise it, put it on for the next meeting. We'll do the same process of closing this hearing
Mhm.
and voting on it and doing the decision at the next one. And then at the next one, we'll hold the hearing on the stormwater, close it, vote on it,
Okay,
and have the decision.
decision drafted then.
With apologies
And
to
there
Solex.
As well, so.
With our apologies.
And I don't think there was anything, any significant conditions, is my memory, on this one. I didn't have anything noted in my notes that there was a significant condition, so,
Okay.
all right.
So you're gonna, so just to be clear, and just so I understand, you're
Yep.
gonna run the ad for the stormwater permit, because that didn't get run.
And I think earth
And the
excavation,
earth excavation
Oh,
permit as
yeah,
well.
we'll make sure,
Let's
but if it
double
needs
check
to be-
and, okay,
it will be.
okay. And then that'll be 14 days under Master General Law for the legal ad. By the time that the 14 days is up, we'll be back here anyway.
Yep.
You'll have a draft decision. And then you can open the hearing for the stormwater, take the votes, good to go. Okay,
And
And
be
the
able to
stormwater
vote
can
on the
be-
decision that
Correct.
night.
That's
Correct.
correct. I mean, it's
all right, so we'll be
pretty
cleaning it up.
straightforward
Okay.
stormwater.
So that would be September 7th as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have a time?
But we're gonna be here anyway.
We haven't said that.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
so-
know.
We'll just put that down because these are decisions, and they're reasonably straightforward.
That'll be a public hearing.
Yeah, so what we'll put down is, once you put 707 for the, Sound Mountain. So then we'll put down 710 as a public hearing time for, the stormwater. And we'll just have you I mean, we know it because we've already presented it basically, but just have you do a quick recap of it in the public hearing. And put down at 7:20 for the decision on the on this. Okay. And then okay. Does that work? Everybody good with that?
Questions?
All right, so
Motion.
We're gonna ask, you open to the public still?
The hearing's still open.
yep. Go ahead.
Question is the drawing showed a wetland management in kind change and movement, is that correct?
Yes, there's a mitigation area.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The question I have then is, has the Southwick Wildlife Management agreed that that wetland management in kind movement meets the standards and of the wildlife management group as well as the state and federal government?
So there's a decision from the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, which is a state agency that oversees endangered species. This has already been reviewed and approved as saying a no take, which means that no endangered species are going to be harmed with the development of this project. That is a state permit. It's gone to a state agency.
Has the Southwick Wildlife Management Area Management Team approved this change?
Sir, the
Is the
wildlife
wildlife
management area is a particular area in town. That's the area they manage.
I
This is
understand.
outside of that area, so this has nothing to do with that group that manages that area.
I believe it does.
Okay.
Like, I think he's thinking about having like a third party. We could get to check on that, just to make sure.
Well, we've had both the Conservation Commission as well as the,
I'm just saying, that's what he's trying to.
no, I understand what he's trying to say, but I think that, you know, there isn't any commission in town that deals with wildlife management. There's the Conservation Commission, which deals with what's under their authority. And then, as you mentioned, Jessica, there's state review of wildlife issues and
It's a review of vegetation, it's a review of wildlife issues, it's a review of 5 criteria that are set up under wildlife management. My simple question, which is not already addressed, is whether or not those 5 items have been addressed appropriately for this change.
so.
It was a simple question.
So then my simple answer is we've considered all the things we have to consider under the bylaw, and I'm not aware of any sort of bylaw that would apply to this property that deals with the wildlife management. They have complied with the state requirements for wildlife management. They've gotten their conservation permit, and I don't see anything that needs to be considered unless you want to present something to me right now that needs to be considered beyond what we've considered with this.
Like, I have a question.
Yes.
Because of this question, have you ever thought about maybe having a separate committee for this, for the wildlife? For the town?
No, but that sounds like a good idea for a master plan discussion.
I totally agree.
Okay.
One for me.
Any other questions or comments? All right, do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
Marcus Phelps, so moved.
Do I hear a
I
second?
can't do it. I'm in the butter, Mike. Can't do it.
It's a motion to continue,
Yeah,
not a
doesn't it
motion to
continue?
close.
Oh,
No,
it's a
I'm
motion
sorry,
to
what did I say?
close.
Did I say motion?
You
To
said
close.
We're-
Yeah.
are we
No, this was
closing?
closing.
We're closing this? and
Yeah,
then
this is
opening
just
it?
special permit and site plan
All
approval.
right, I thought we were gonna close them all together.
No, there's no reason not
All
to.
right.
Yeah. So do I hear a motion to close?
I made the motion to
I'm sorry,
close, need a second.
I'll second. David Spina second.
And Jessica
David Speed.
is a voting member on this. Do I, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay.
So this particular pickup ringer was
He's
abstaining.
a-
Yeah, he's
Yep,
recused himself.
he's
from the
recused himself
hearing.
from this, yep.
Abstains.
Okay. 720, 42 Depot Street. We have, these got advertised separately. We'll combine these when we open them, but let's start with the special permit, site plan approval, earth excavation, special permit, and stormwater permit application. Public hearing. If you want to give me the notice, I'll read it in.
Sure, give me a second.
Yep, I'll take the time.
Oh,
Yeah, this got advertised
Oh,
separately, so
okay.
it got,
yeah.
the wetland needed to be done, so that was done.
The second notice homogenized all of those matters into a single advertisement. Identifying today.
Okay, so we will open up both the first one on there and the 720 42 Depot Street Wellhead Protection District site special permit public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 11. The planning board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 29th, 2021 at 7:30 PM in the Land Use Hearing Room, Town Hall, 454 College Highway, on an application by Right Hand Clyde Real Estate LLC for a special permit, site plan review, earth excavation, special permit, and stormwater management permit for the property located at 42 Depot Street, Zone Business B and R20A. Property is shown on Assessor's Map 89, Parcel 30. The applicant proposes to construct a residential community in accordance with the Code of Suffolk Zoning Bylaws, Chapter 185, Sections 9, 10, 14, 22, 33, and 36.1. Zoom information is given. A copy of the application and the plans may be inspected by contacting the interim town planner, John Goddard, at 413-569-6056, or his email address. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should appear at the time and manner designated. Michael Doherty, Chairperson, Suffolk Planning Board. Okay. Go ahead, Jess.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I actually have to do something too. Thank you.
I have to make a statement because I'm in a butter to this project. My property at 28 Depot Street. I'll abstain from participating.
And just give me 1 second. I gotta.
I've made a lot of questionable choices. Was it all because I was dehydrated? Nah. But now I'm trying to make smarter decisions. Now,
We all?
water and stuff like that. Keep living smart.
All right.
That commercial was brought to you by the fine makers of Craco.
Give me 1 second. Let me just pull up. Okay, so I filed with the clerk, I believe in June, since this was back on a while ago, a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest as required by General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 23B3. This needs to be filed, and I will read what I described as the issue that would provide the appearance of favoritism or influence, which is that my aunt and uncle own the property that we're talking about, 42 Depot Street in the town of Southwick. My understanding is that they have signed a purchase and sale agreement with a developer to sell the developer the property conditioned on the developer obtaining the necessary permits to construct the proposed development. I have no relationship to the developer. The developer has submitted an application for the necessary permits from the planning board, which is the special permit granting authority in Southwick, of which I am a member and the chair. And we are deciding whether to grant the necessary permits. Taking this disclosure into account and all the situations here, I feel that I can perform my official duties objectively and fairly. I'm not an interested party. I have no financial stake in the property, and there is no inherent conflict based on the relationship. So, all right, Jessica.
So I'm
go.
sorry, does that mean you abstained from voting?
No, I'm going to be a voting member.
So out of 4 members, 1 abstains, and you have a conflict interest, which you don't believe you have.
I don't have a conflict of interest.
Thank you.
I have what could be an appearance of a conflict of interest, which I have disclosed pursuant to the appropriate
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
laws. Jessica, go ahead.
Okay. So this is the first time that the board and the public seeing this project. So let's start at the beginning here. So this is a 22-acre site on Depot Street. We have adjacent to the rail trail, we're surrounded by residential uses. We have mostly fields. There's existing house and some barns and some structures. So this is just our existing conditions plan, so you can get a lay of the land and the size of the property. I'm going to tell you that the plans are kind of chunked out between the east side and the west side, so because of the scale of the site. So I don't want there any confusion when we're looking at the plans. Just understand that it's kind of chopped into. Okay. So the proposal is for 100 acre, oh my goodness, 100 units, townhouses, mix of different styles of ranch and townhouse styles. The proposal is for this to come in off Depot Street. We've got 11 groupings of buildings. There's no fewer than 4 and no more than 12 units per grouping per the zoning. We have a wildflower lane that comes in through the site, comes down here, loops around, ends here in sort of this T cul-de-sac. There's also the Primrose Way that is also down here in the southern part, closer to the rail trail. So the buildings are grouped into these clusters. We do meet the requirements per the zoning for developed recreational area and undeveloped natural area. So the center of the property has 107,900 square feet of recreational area. And we have natural area left up here on the top. That's about 104,000 square feet. So those calculations are based on the zoning requirements for the open space. We have, based on the size of the acreage, we had the potential to build out 132 units, but due to the topography and some of the site constraints, we have 100 unit development. We have numerous stormwater basins that are part of this. Stormwater would be collected in various basins along the southern side of the, whoops, let's go up, not shrink.
On which side?
Did you say the south side?
If we're looking at the plans, the southern part of the plan, see these areas of basins with grading, like tight grading around it? That's a basin right here. There's another one proposed here and here. And then on the other sheet, Mike, I don't know if you can shrink the names of the people so that we can.
So are you talking about 5 stormwater basins altogether?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, let me just sort of get through the presentation and then maybe we can have the discussion afterwards. That would be great. If I can just sort of get through all the pieces and then we can get through it. So yeah, talking about 5 stormwater basins. a pretty detailed stormwater infrastructure system. We have received comments from DPW on some questions on the stormwater system. We have a response letter that we've put together. We'll be addressing all of those. We've discussed them internally, but we know that there's a number of issues that need to be addressed in the stormwater infrastructure. And so we're looking at that on how we can accommodate that.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the rules are.
We're gonna have time for comments and questions afterwards.
There's these comments that, okay, well.
We're gonna have time for comments and questions
I appreciate it.
afterwards,
Thank
so.
you.
The proposal has a sidewalk on one side of Primrose Way, and then the sidewalk picking up on the other side here of Wildflower. Sidewalk infrastructure also here, connecting the two. We meet the zoning requirements under the residential garden apartments. Pretty detailed in the narrative. The apartments are closer than 100 feet to Depot Street. The regulations require that structures may not occupy more than 25% of the total land. Right now, the building structures occupy 13% of the total land, so we're under the threshold under the zoning for that. As the distribution of bedroom units is being discussed, we will not have more than 5% of the units be 3 bedrooms under the zoning code. That's one of the requirements. We have had an internal discussion about bedroom counts and distribution, and I can talk about that as we get as we move forward in the discussion if needed. I know that the water is one brought up in other meetings, Water Commission meetings specifically. The proponent is well aware of the current moratorium that is in place, and has indicated that a building permit will not be pulled unless the water moratorium is lifted, unless there's some discussion that we could have with the town about phasing the production of the units if the moratorium seems like it's going to be lasting longer than the market is going to hold for these units. So that is the big picture. I think we can open it up to any more detailed questions from the board members if that is your preference.
Yeah. John, do you have anything to add on your side?
No, I mean, there's a lot of information that was just bundled into the first 7 minutes of discussion right there. The application contains a very detailed point-by-point response to the requirements under zoning. As did, and I think the response letter with the acknowledgement of the stormwater matters moving forward. It's a good springboard for the forthcoming discussions.
I do also just want to note that conservation has seen this. We've already done some minor modifications to the plans, and what you're looking at tonight is the first revised set. So the request was to pull units. This is unit 5 through 12 right here, and pull it farther away from the buffer zone as much as possible. So we've done that realignment and pulled it out as much as we can. If we start pulling it any farther, then we're going to start messing with the road alignment, and that's some engineering in terms of just safety of the road and how it's designed. We'd like to sort of just keep those units where they are, but they have been modified once already per Conservation Commission comments.
So that's that staggering the building.
Yeah, the staggering. So they were a little bit closer to the wetland buffer. They were still outside of it, but they asked for it to be dragged farther if possible. So those units have been full.
What's the measurement?
The wetland buffer is right here. See the dark line? That's the wetland buffer.
Yeah, I'm asking what's the measurement from the wetland border to the building?
I can use my measurement tool.
Are you 200 feet away, 100 feet away?
No, it's not that.
Meters. What meters? 600 feet plus.
That's my measurement tool. Here it is. Hold on, I gotta look to see what the scale is. 40.
That's,
So it's about 24 feet, 25 feet?
That's not the closest.
Well, hold on, sir. Let's get, when we get to the public, you will have an opportunity to speak, okay?
Yes, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
taking over the meeting, and I don't really appreciate it.
I haven't taken over the meeting, I just
Okay.
had a question you allowed me to ask.
I didn't allow you to ask. You actually specifically told you that you will have an opportunity later on to ask
I
questions.
appreciate that, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
So if we're looking at unit 10, so it's about 12 feet, but it is outside, that meets the regulations under the Conservation Commission. It is outside the wetland buffer. It could be up against the wetland buffer and it would still meet the regulations under the Conservation Commission.
All
Could you repeat that answer for me, Jess?
Sure, I'd love to. So it is outside the wetland buffer that meets the Conservation Commission regulations. Are you looking for the distance? It was
Yeah.
12, it was 12 feet.
Okay.
Is it wetland?
Yeah, hold on, no.
Can you
hold on.
not interrupt and
We're-
wait until public comment?
So just so everybody knows, what we do is we allow the presentation by the applicant. We have a board discussion about it. We then turn to town officials if they have questions, and then we have after that. So everybody will have an opportunity to ask their questions and comments and have a back and forth about with the applicant as far as answers. The one thing I neglected to do is because Marcus has recused himself from this is to designate Jessica as a voting member on this. I also need to do a motion procedurally just to combine the two hearings into one. So do I hear a motion to combine the wellhead permit hearing with the other hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay. All right, so let me, W comments you're still working through.
Yes, so we did provide a response letter on August 4th. There were some general comments. There was some specific to stormwater, some specific to water and sewer and the fire department. So I believe we answered most of them, but the stormwater does need some, it's gonna need some revisions and it's gonna change the plans. So I think what we wanted to do is before we dived into revising the plans for the stormwater only, we wanted to make sure there weren't any other revisions that we needed to incorporate at the same time, just to be efficient with our time and the board's time and not have too many revised sets floating around there because it can get confusing.
Okay,
So
so what I'm gonna do, so that we have it on record and is read in, since you take the comments and you put them in and you put your response, I'm just gonna read through this so that's on the record. Feel the need to jump in after I read your response and add anything, feel free to. You know, a lot of these, Randy's good about noting things that you have to do in the future. So a lot of these are simply that. But I will read through those and we'll have it down for the record.
Great.
So these are the general comments from DPW. One, there is an existing AT&T fiber optic cable located on the western side of the rail trail and appears to be located between 1 foot and 5 feet from the property that is not shown on the plans. The applicant should be aware of this line when performing work along the property line. DPW has requested AT&T to mark this line in the field. The applicant's response is noted. Two, please clarify how material is being excavated and removed from the property. If over 1,000 cubic yards, an earth excavation permit is required. Response, approximately 72,000 cubic yards of material is expected to be excavated and removed from the site. Material will be disposed of legally by the selected contractor. An earth excavation permit has been requested in association with the special permit request. Three, the applicant shall install and maintain an anti-tracking pad to minimize dirt and debris from being carried into the road during construction. Response, an anti-tracking pad at the construction entrance is shown on sheet C3 on the submitted plan set. Four, the applicant shall secure a demolition permit prior to demolishing the existing house and structures. The water and sewer services shall be cut and capped at the main and the street. Response understood and noted. 5, only 15 of the 37 test pit logs were submitted with the application. Please deliver the rest to the town for review. Response to remaining test pit logs were submitted to the DPW on June 25th, 2021 via email. 6, the applicant shall repair any sidewalk along Depot Street that is damaged as a result of the construction activities. Response understood and noted. A note will be added to C4 that states contractor to repair any sidewalk along Depot Street damaged as a result of construction activities. 7, is there a central mail drop-off location for the development? If so, please identify the location on the plans, including parking spots for residents. Okay. Response, mail delivery will likely be at individual units. If a central mail drop-off location is needed, a location will be added to the plan set with parking spots.
So that's still under consideration by the applicant, so
Okay. So we'll keep that.
keep that in mind.
Yep.
Yep.
8, the applicant shall provide a third-party inspector to monitor construction and provide inspection reports to the town in accordance with section 315-10.1B. Response understood and noted. 9, the applicant shall deposit funds for sidewalks not installed on one side of the road into the sidewalk revolving account that was established at the 2018 annual town meeting. The amount shall be to be determined. Response, there is no requirement for sidewalks to be installed on 2 sides of the proposed access way in the zoning regulations for a residential apartment house project. Per section 185-14A(C)(6), sidewalks shall be provided on the site from parking areas to dwelling units and wherever else pedestrian traffic warrants. All right, so we'll talk about that as well. 10, because this is under a different section. This is under what? What's the section? That's the residential.
It's the residential garden apartment development section of the 20 zoning district.
Yeah. All right.
So those are the standards that we went by for the entire design of the project. Okay.
Yeah, okay,
right.
so that's.
Okay.
Yep. 10, the quantities in the table on sheet C14 should be filled out completely. Response, the table on sheet C14 will be updated in a future revised plan set. 11, considering this is a private facility, the homeowners association will be responsible to own and maintain all road, stormwater, water, and sewer infrastructure on the property in perpetuity, including the water quality unit within Depot Street near Dry Basin number 2. Response understood and noted. The master deed will include language on the responsibility of these items. The O&M plan, which is Appendix G of the submitted stormwater report, dictates proper maintenance of the stormwater infrastructure. 12, the applicant shall verify if there will be a connection to the natural gas utility. If so, please show the proposed gas lines on the plans. Response, the proponent is currently determining whether gas or electric will be utilized for heating systems within the units. If it is determined that natural gas will be utilized, then the proposed gas lines will be shown on the plans.
So I think the applicant is looking to do natural gas, but we may need some assistance from the town on identifying where the line is. I know that we looked for it earlier and we had a little bit of trouble of identifying it. So we might need some assistance from town officials for making sure that we've got the proper location.
Okay, you know who to talk to.
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Stormwater comments from DPW. 1, dry basin 2 and infiltration basins 1 and 2 are all or partially located within the wellhead protection area. In accordance with town bylaw 185-22, these basins shall be preceded by oil, grease, and sediment traps to facilitate removal of contamination. Response, deep sump hooded catch basins will act as a pre-treatment to capture any oil, grease, or sediment prior to discharge to down gradient infrastructure. These structures are allowed within the Zone 2 per Mass DEP Stormwater Management Handbook. 2, based on the test pit data provided, the depth to seasonal high groundwater is relatively shallow. The design does not appear to take into account how to manage groundwater. Of particular concern are the locations of deep earth cuts near units 29 to 41, 42 to 50, and 80 to 88. The applicant shall provide a plan on how this groundwater is to be managed during construction. Further, there are several locations where French drains are proposed to collect groundwater and discharge flow into the street. It does not appear that runoff from these under drains has been accounted for in the sizing of the proposed detention and infiltration basins. The design and stormwater report should be updated to reflect flow from these sources. Response, RLA will further investigate how to manage stormwater to address these concerns and will update the plans and stormwater report accordingly. 3, the proposed under drains and yard drains discharge onto the road. DPW is concerned this will lead to icing conditions during winter months. The applicant should consider tying these drains into a buried stormwater system. Response, applicant will further investigate how to manage discharge into the road to address these concerns and will update the plans accordingly. 4, the applicant shall modify the elevations of the infiltration and detention basins in order to meet minimum cover above estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation where necessary for applicable bylaws and regulations. A minimum 2 feet of separation is required at dry basin 1 and infiltration basin 3. Response, the plans have been designed to meet this standard at these basins. B, a minimum 3 foot of separation is required at dry basin 2 and infiltration basins 1 and 2. Response, the site plans and stormwater report will be revised to meet this standard at these basins. 5, at locations where roof water is discharging directly into the detention or infiltration basins, a reinforced slope shall be provided to minimize erosion. Response, riprap has been added to the plans and will be submitted to the planning board on a future revised plan set. 6, show the limits of wash stone surrounding the 12-inch PVC inlet pipe for the outlet control structure details on sheet D5. Response, these details have been updated and will be submitted to the planning board on a future revised plan set. 7, DPW recommends adding clean out structures at all bends in the buried roof gutter lines for ease of maintenance. Response, a note will be added to add cleanouts at all bends in the buried roof gutter lines. Water comments. 1, the applicant shall note that there are 2 water mains on Depot Street. The water main is under the sidewalk. The water main under the sidewalk is active and the water main in the street is abandoned in place. Response, understood and noted. 2, the water commissioner established a moratorium on new water service connections that will draw in excess of 150,000 gallons per year. The moratorium is scheduled to be reevaluated in July 2021. Response, as noted in the special permit application narrative, the applicant will not request the building permit until the moratorium has been lifted. If there is an anticipated delay with the release of the moratorium, the proponent would like the option to phase construction of the units in a manner that is acceptable to the commissioners. 3, the water department assesses a connection fee of $825 per unit for new developments. Response, understood and noted. 4, the master meter in a meter pit should be provided at Depot Street. The meter will be used to generate water and sewer bills for the homeowners association. Response, a determination has yet to be made by the proponent on whether sub-meters will be provided for each individual unit.
So just an update on that. So the applicant is thinking of doing sub-meters, but we'd like to have the opportunity to talk to the DPW and Water Commission about what their preference is and then sort of go from there.
5, the design shows hydrants spaced every 400 feet in accordance with water department policy. However, the location of some hydrants should be shifted slightly so they are at high points in the system to allow for air to be released from the system. Further, a hydrant is necessary in front of units 42 to 50 for flushing and disinfecting purposes. Response, the plans will be revised in a future plan set to address the requested changes to hydrant locations. 6, if the applicant proposes to install an irrigation system, it shall be fed by a private well that is not connected to the municipal water system. Response, there are no plans for an irrigation system. Sewer comments from the DPW. 1, see sheet B3, precast concrete manhole with outside drop detail. DPW recommends internal drops with removable plug-in horizontal part of T for ease of maintenance to the sewer line. Response, the plans will be revised to show an inside drop manhole detail on sheet D3. 2, the sewer department assesses a connection fee of $2,648.26 per EDU. The number of EDUs is to be determined. Response, understood and noted. Fire department comment, the original plan showed the buildings to be sprinklers. Sprinklers do not appear in the revised plans. Response, fire suppression lines will be added on a future revised plan set. Okay. So those are the comments from the written comments from town officials. before I open it up to any town officials, any board comments on that? No, nothing? Okay, any town officials have comments? Okay, give me 1 second just to pull up the Zoom screen here. Okay, any public comments? Let's start with the first. Oh, yes, sir.
Does the K 185-37-2 phase growth, does that apply to this?
It does not,
Why not?
because that is expired many, many years ago. It was a 5-year, it had a 5-year term of life by the text of it. So if you read it, you'll see it's a 5-year period of time. It's long since expired.
Thank you.
Yep. Sir, in the front.
Yes, my name is Guy Barbieri. I live at 17 South Road. I apologize, Jessica. You presented it in two. Is there a way we can get, just so we can understand the scope and the scale, because as an abutter of the development to the, forgive me, for the west of this development, is concerned about proximity and how much is going, how much as far as clearance, tree removal. There's a lot of that concern. I think as a presentation to those abutters and to answer some questions for them, if there's any way we could get it to find out how far west it is encroaching on the tree line be affected as part of this construction.
So I think the best thing I can do is I can show you the demo, which will detail what's being demoed, what's being removed prior to the construction of the new unit. So let's, and this is, let's zoom it out. Whoops, wrong buttons. So this is the entire property, okay? And I'm gonna just pull up, let me see if I pulled up the GIS. Can you see this? Not, let me, just as a point of reference, it might be good to just have context. This may or may not be helpful, but this is your community GIS, which is available through your town website. So the highlighted property is 42 Depot, and it just gives you some context of the residential nature and location of the bike path. So that's sort of like just a big picture. So that if you take this and then flip it for the plans, let's go back. Okay. So that provides some context, okay? So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit because it's hard to read otherwise, but you're asking specifically about the tree line. This is the proposed tree line that's going to remain. This area is the natural open space that's required under the zoning. So all of this tree is gonna stay. There's an existing chain link right here. This is the tree line here. And then there's gonna be, most of the demo work is here with the existing house and the barns. But this at least shows you the tree line, which is what you just specifically asked about.
Now, may I ask another question?
Yeah, sorry.
Again, forgive me my geography here. How far to the west does in proximity from your building to the existing buildings? Can you tell us in feet?
To Depot Square, is that what you're?
Yeah, to the closest building, just so we can get a scale.
Sure. So I think what we need to do is go down to here. Is this what you mean by this area?
Yes. Now,
Okay.
that's towards the back end of the facility,
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
I'm talking, if you go over to the, top of it, right there.
Yeah, so
That's
that's the natural area that's gonna
Right, and
remain.
then I'm looking at the units along the property line up top.
Up here?
Yes, now, that's what seems to be the closest to the Depot Square development, correct? And can you tell me, see, it's hard.
See, okay, so right here, there's a measurement, 62.5 feet from the property line to the corner of the buildings.
And behind the buildings, your intent is to leave whatever trees?
Yep, this is all trees that will remain in place. A lot of this is jurisdictional as well.
How far back will you be cutting back towards the west, the north?
Let me look at just the grading plan. Let me pull that up real quick.
I'm sorry to monopolize, I just wanted to.
No, that's fine. So you'll see here, this is behind the same stack of units, I believe, right? 17 through 28, okay.
Right.
So these are grading lines right here. So the dash is the existing topography, and then this is the grading that needs to happen in order for the buildings to be placed and for stormwater management and drainage. So there is a retaining wall that's proposed here to keep this slope back, but this is the tree line that's going to remain right here.
What is the amount of feet of tree line being removed is the question.
The feet or the square area or?
Mr. Chairman, can I go to the drawing and ask the question?
Sir, we will call on you when it's, we're going to take turns. Mr. Barbieri has a few questions, and we're going to keep going through, and we'll get to everybody who's here.
So for clarification, this hatched area, I'm not moving my computer, but it's moving on its own. Okay, we'll delay there. The hatched area is the vegetation slated to be removed. So here's the existing tree line here. This is the proposed tree line. And this is the difference. So the hatched, if we zoom out a little bit, that gives you some context.
Chairman, may I stand up? I just want to ask a question. In the number of feet from the curvature to the left, how many feet?
From point on the screen where you want to measure,
I'm
need to
sorry.
measure. No, that's fine.
From right here to the, how many feet is that?
To the building.
Yes. I'm just trying to get an idea of how much it's going to be, the viewpoint is going to be affected, that's all. No.
So you want me to measure from here to here?
No, I just wanted to know, yeah, how many feet?
So like from the existing tree line to the new tree line.
To this, it's about 48 feet.
And one final thing, could we get a full-scale mock-up of this?
Sure, I can ask. It'll be more for just conceptual. It'll be hard to measure because I think the scale will be so big. It'll
Right.
be like, 100 scale. So
No,
it'll be hard to get the details, but we can provide that as sort of a conceptual.
If that's all.
Sure, I can ask the engineers to
Thank you,
do
Mr.
that.
Chairman, appreciate it.
Mhm.
Jessica, is it possible to put an overlay of this on a
Aerial?
satellite? Yeah.
I can
I
ask for
think
that
that
as
will
well.
be
Yep.
helpful as well.
Oh,
Okay, public comments. We'll keep going now then. Sir?
John Valancourt, 12 Rainy Avenue. The narrative says that there only have to be 5% of the dwelling units with 3 bedrooms, that's 5, right?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. But 28 of them seem to be capable of having 3 or maybe even 4 bedrooms.
71. 3 bedrooms.
I'm sorry. So you're looking at the conceptual architectural building elevations, is that, or are you looking at
Those
these?
are townhouses, correct?
Correct, but
17 through 28, and to the road and to the back, there are 71 townhouses.
correct, but there are only proposed to be 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom, and no more than 5 units will be 3 bedrooms in the development. So those plans would all be reviewed by the building department prior to any building permits being granted.
So only 5% then.
Only 5%, under the zoning, only 5% can be 3-bedroom units. And with a 100-unit proposed, only 5 of those units will be
So
3
how many
bedrooms.
bedrooms are going to be total then in this complex?
So looking at just sort of conceptually, I asked the applicants or the proponents to maybe put together what they thought their marketing would be. So 5 units at 3 bedrooms, 66 units at 2 bedrooms and 29 units at 1 bedrooms. Now, this is just estimated at this time under these market conditions. But again, no more than 5% of the units will be 3 bedrooms.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, so.
Yeah.
Are you all set? Okay.
So I'm gonna say several, because when I counted it, I counted the little fat ones. I thought there were only 28 of them. Those were the potential 3 bedrooms. It seems like there's a lot of potential for renovations. Is there gonna be any covenant to not have that? And, you know, long-term, I'm concerned about school population. You know, we're gonna add 100 to 450 potential residents in this little area here. Is it gonna grow suddenly 600? Because we're squeezing in little rooms in this development after.
I don't see any reason why there couldn't be something put into the master deed that conditions that, if that's the planning board's,
I mean, it's also governed by, I mean, if they're gonna do renovations, they have to pull a permit. And so be governed by that. I mean, they're gonna be assessed at various times as far as number of bedrooms. And I mean, the other part about it, just to give you some frame of reference, right, Depot Square, and I don't have off the top of my head what the number of bedrooms per thing is, but Depot Square, I think, has 3 children in 50 units. So I'm not sure I see the sort of evidence that there's going to be a significant impact on schools in a condominium complex that is capped out at 5 3 bedrooms. And most of them are going to be either 2 or 1 bedrooms. It didn't play out that way in Depot Square. And I'm not sure I've seen anything that would sort of suggest otherwise. Okay.
I dispute that 3 people. I'm going to be an accountant for the school.
That live there.
Every day I went by
Okay,
there.
so, sir,
Can I just,
yeah, hold on.
just because it's been interchanged online and I want to make sure it's clear, are these rental units or are they purchased, owned condos?
I believe the understanding is they're purchased owned condos. The applicant is in the room. If there's a difference than that, then that's fine. But my understanding is they're to be sold. Yep, owner occupied.
Thank you.
Sir.
Jim Maslowski, Federal Ridge. That was my thing on the application. It says residential apartment houses versus townhouses.
Let me just explain. So the language that they're using in the application is the language from the bylaw. That language is defined in the bylaw, and it's defined to include both apartments and condominium units.
I was wished to get clarification as to
Yep.
exactly what it is, and that whether or not, I don't know if the town can not have townhouses rented. I think is that part of the deed, that you can't sublet it and you just open it up for whatever, or that these are actually going to be homes per se.
Why would you prevent that from a single family house from somebody?
No, I'm not, I'm just saying,
Okay.
the way
Just-
that this is all being collected.
Exactly.
And the number in the reference here is 104. So there is a reference to 104 over 100, I don't know if that matters, but in the application, it says 104.
I think we had it in 104 and then we ended up having to reduce units
Well,
over the cost of.
it's still in the application.
Yep,
but
understood.
As far as building these things and for townhouses, et cetera, that these are for sale, that is the HOA defined? I didn't see any reference in when I was reading this about an HOA. You mentioned several times about having an HOA. Is that part of the deed? Is that part of the planning?
There will be an
Actually have
HOA,
that?
right, there'll be an HOA, they'll be responsible for the open space.
Right, but is that part of is that an official document?
It will be submitted at a later time. It's not submitted in the initial submission, but there'll be a homeowner association documents that are submitted later on.
Thank you.
So,
Honorable
Cindy,
Hi, was it clarified, are they going to be residential condos?
yes.
That has been verified?
Yes.
I have another issue. That's Carter Valley, Davis Road. My issue is that there's gonna be a lot more traffic, and you have the trail, and then you have the other condos. What are you gonna do about the traffic? Because a lot of people, right at the end of Depot, where it goes down from South London, you're gonna have a lot of people that like to do the stop sign. Are you gonna have any kind of traffic light set up or anything? What are you gonna do for the traffic?
There was no intent to have a traffic light here. I think there'll
That's
be,
gonna be a real bad intersection, you're gonna get, especially, yeah, the three-way right now, and you're gonna have issues, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you're gonna have the buses, you're gonna have people that are gonna go down the other opposite way, go on Powder Mill, so there has to be something to be done with, the travel who's down there. So I think you need to do something in regards to that, have a study, whatever, but that's a major issue. If you're gonna have a lot of accidents right there. And you gotta worry
But I
about the
second
kids.
that.
And I think a lot of people here will have the same issues because you have kids on bikes, you have the bikers that come down. So I think that needs to be stressed and, you know, be one of your top priorities because you gotta worry about the safety of the people here.
Any other public comments? So the next row. Yeah.
Hi, Libby Bertram, 44 Charles Johnson Road. Just had a couple of questions. What determines the water moratorium, whether or not it gets changed or remains as it is now?
So it's the water commissioners who are deciding it. They met Thursday. It's still in effect. The discussion right now, I mean, I suspect they're going to be discussing it more as it keeps going, but the discussion right now is to wait and see when the new improvements are completed, to sort of provide a backstop in case a well goes down. And that's why they're keeping the moratorium, is the best I can understand. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question? Where are they parking? How many parking spots per townhouse?
so right now there are designed to have garages for each of the units, and then there's driveway spaces as well. So depending on the style of the unit, depending on the size of the unit. So the ranch styles have 2-car garages, the townhouse styles have a 1-car garage. My guess is that it's going to depend on number of bedrooms, but there's parking in the unit itself, and then there's also parking within the driveway. We don't have a common area for off-street parking under the design.
Thank you.
Mhm.
sir, right behind. I was pointing at the person right behind the woman who just spoke. Thank you.
Ray Bell, 3270 Brown in Missouri. I know that you talked about the western side of the property. Now, tell me more about the eastern side, the right trail.
Sure. Sure. So there are, yep, so we can look at the landscape plan because we do have some landscaping that is proposed to be installed in that location. So there's 3 groupings. There's one grouping here, the stormwater, another grouping here, and then 2 other here. I'm going to just jump down to the landscape plan. So we do have proposed plantings along this side. There is, existing tree line. This is the trail right here. This is the tree line. So that is outside the property boundary, so that won't be touched. And then there will be additional plantings that are added here. Let's go next. Some plantings here. This stormwater basin takes up a good amount of real estate, so we're not putting any plantings here, and then we have a couple more here. But there is a, significant tree boundary here and the rail trail being down here. So there's already an existing buffer that's in place, and we're just supplementing that with additional plantings.
Peter?
Peter Perry, West News. 2 questions. One, how many stories will these units be?
Well, under the zoning, they can't be higher than, I believe, 35 feet. So right now they're looking at 2 stories, but they won't be higher than 35 feet. That's under the zoning.
And second question, does that property have any access to the road right now, or is that?
Well, there's an existing house with structures, so there is a driveway curb cut already there.
Thank
you.
Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you please show the area where you were talking with the gentleman about Depot Square and the distance? And would you refer to property lines?
You can just say your name and address again.
I did.
Please.
Robert Paul, 28 Rails End, Southwick.
So you want to look at
Right, so you.
this plan here?
Yeah,
And then,
the point of my question is the amount of vegetation, trees, et cetera, that are going to need to, you're proposing are eliminated in order to make this project happen. And then therefore, what will be the distance, the amount of feet between the property line? So, I mean, is this area all pinned in your drawing, or is it something from Google?
no, we have survey crew
It's all
that goes out,
okay,
everything
great.
is existing conditions, field verified, yeah.
Great, field verified, great.
Yes.
So what's the amount of footage from the back of the property to the next property line, not between the buildings?
I'm sorry, between the property line,
Yeah,
so
property
between
lines.
here,
You went from to building to building. Go from property line to property line. The point is, you mentioned 30 feet, 10 meters.
Are you asking for the setback from
I was
property
just
line?
asking what the setback is.
from this building
And
here,
what the point I'm after is the amount of vegetation that is going to be eliminated in order for this to happen, let alone the fact that you have fall come and buildings look at buildings and all that good stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out what is the amount of vegetation you're taking out now in order, and try and get some description for everybody to understand how many feet it is or how many meters it is between the two property lines.
It's just because I don't think there's anything being taken out on the west side down here, is there?
That's all the vegetation comes out here, or they're cutting down trees.
I'm just a little confused on the question, so.
Yeah. I don't think.
Maybe up a little.
So,
I'm not sure down the bottom.
here's the big picture view, right?
Depot Square.
We're just looking at we have the plans for this project.
Well, I'm just, you know, you have the line where Depot Square ran. You answered the gentleman's question between the two households.
The Depot Square is not the property next to it in the front there, is it? So I'm not sure where you're going.
Where I was
Over here.
asking west, it is,
So there's a wetland here.
yeah, but
See-
if the tree line, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
You know it, so I mean, it's where that cuts in, is that
Yeah,
where
that part right there is gonna be abutting the Depot Square, and
Not
the
that
concern
part.
we
Go
have.
to the right.
Oh, the right, it's,
Yeah, right.
You know what?
I mean, I'm gonna take his word for it.
Yeah,
since
I
he
know
says
where
it's-
I
I know where you are, exactly.
Right where the,
Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing this for a second. I'm just gonna jump over to the GIS because it has,
Can you pull up the satellite? And
yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Slide of that?
Yeah.
Depot Square and the.
That's what she's gonna pull up the satellite.
So
of
I'm pulling up
property.
the town's GIS and I'm gonna put on the layers
Top right, Jessica.
there you
Four
go.
squares.
right
See-
here.
see where they
This
cut
you're
out?
talking
Yeah.
about?
No,
No.
No,
This.
right there, right
There
there,
you go.
So you wanna know what the difference is between here and the property boundary?
correct.
Okay, well, we can measure it on here.
And then the vegetation that you're taking down in order, is the second part of the question. And then there's a total square meters, it's easier to deal in meters, I guess. That's being taken out.
Thanks.
That's what I was.
That's
trying
what you're
to-
looking for.
Okay, so here's the satellite. This is an existing field. Okay, so there's no trees there, it's a field, okay. And you wanna know what the distance is from this unit here to the property line?
Property, not from the building, property line to property line. So Depot Square has a property line here. There's another property line. What's the distance and what's the amount of square?
You're talking about the
meters?
limit of work, not the property line. I think that's where I'm getting confused.
yeah.
Okay, you're talking about the limit of work from the proposal to this unit here. Okay. That I may need to have the engineers do a combination of the aerial photo and then we can do the measurement.
It's approximately, would you say it's about
I can't
10
give,
meters?
I can't give you what the measurement is without having the accurate data in front of me. So what I'm gonna ask is I'm gonna ask the engineers to get an aerial photo. I'm gonna have them overlay, hold on, sir. I'm gonna have them overlay the concept, and then we can do the measurements from the buildings, and then we can provide that information at the next hearing.
So, okay, I'm gonna try and wrap this all around for a point, okay? To bring it around. The question, there's a significant, appears to be a significant amount of vegetation being removed at this one section in order to facilitate the movement of, from the other side, of wetlands, from one spot to another. So, well, you have wetlands that are being, you have a wetland not so much being moved, but being constructed and replaced. Is that,
On this one, not.
ma'am, do you have a wetland area being addressed?
Wetlands in the front.
Wetlands are in the front, and that is being reviewed by Conservation Commission. So this project is under a parallel permitting track with Concom, and they're the ones that are taking the
So I'm
hard
trying to
work.
wrap that all together. Your layout has a wetland being addressed.
Yep.
You're pushing, what appears to be pushing into this wooded area in order to fit this site design. Is that correct?
No, sir. The wetlands, you want to bring that up again, Jessica?
Yeah, I'm trying.
I just want to make sure you understand. The wetlands are in the front corner. That's the, I believe that's the only, that's why you had to.
This is
apply
the
for
only,
permit.
yes, this is the 100-foot wetland buffer. This is the flagged wetlands.
It's
This
the
is.
only part of the
Yep.
wetlands in the property.
Let me re-ask it. Are you're moving into what is the wooded area in order to facilitate the layout of the 104 building?
Yeah, so if you're looking at
Is
this
that correct?
if you're looking at this demolition plan, sir, if you look at the demolition plan, I
Yeah.
can show you visually.
I looked at it.
Okay, so the double hatched area, those are the trees that are being removed. I can have the engineers calculate what that square footage is of removal, if that's information that the board would like and is meaningful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to be a part of the record is, and how much is the square meters that are being taken out in order to facilitate this design for 104 building?
So we'll get that for the next meeting.
Square meters, okay?
Why meters
No, it
versus?
doesn't, don't care.
Well, square
We
feet,
have
you wanna deal with,
calculators.
if you're doing drawings and meters and.
We're not doing drawings and meters.
Okay, would you like
This is in square feet, so that's
Can we do
what,
square feet?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do hectares too if you want. All right. The second part of that is the Department of Public Works should provide us a list very much of their questions. Is the present outstanding stormwater drainage issue in that area, which exists presently in Depot Square? There's drainage, stormwater drainage issues and challenges that are now going to be accented by what is happening here. Is that being addressed by the DPW before there's an approval to move forward?
It would appear that the majority of the DPW's comments regarding water and runoff were addressing that. And they are requesting that the applicant make changes. So yes, we are aware of the fact that there's water on the property. The applicant is adjusting their plans per the DPW's comments on it.
There's a requirement that you, and Randy can correct me if I say that's wrong, or John can, that you don't change the sort of way it runs off by the development. So that's being assessed by DPW and us as these plans come in.
So as I bring that together, Mr. Chairman, something that you're going to wait to see finalized prior to approving moving forward.
Yes, there still needs to be changes to the stormwater management system.
Thank you, sir. My last point is, and earlier tonight we discussed in the open session that the Southwick Wildlife Management Area, that whole, there's a whole bunch of different, a long list. I'll leave it as a record if nobody has it, but you sort of absorbed it into the planning commission.
You can leave it with us.
So even with all my notes, so I'll make another copy for Mr. Goddard and so forth. Is that whole area, for example, is red-tailed hawks. That whole thing, that's where they nest, that's where they hunt. And now what we're going to do is take out some substantial nesting areas for the hawks. it's a point that I'm looking for, who's addressing that and how do we move it around? There's a set of, the gentleman brought up trees and the vegetation being cut out, whether or not the vegetation is on this laundry list of vegetation that in this Southwick area specifically should not be cut out, which has to be addressed for. There's things where they talk about the fact that, you know, a half a mile away is some box turtle, okay, that you have to watch out what you're doing where you open up an area as big as 20-some acres and you change the topography. How does that address? So I'll leave it alone on your desk, Mr. Chairman, saying what's not clear in the work that has been done and presented to date is that all those areas that have been addressed.
Okay,
So
you can submit that and we'll take that into consideration.
thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman back there who's sitting down, I saw your hand up. Is that, you still have a question?
Yeah, one of the things that came up earlier was the fire suppression.
Yes.
And when you are building, I think you said you have some that are 12. By the way, I'm Mike Parent, Junction Station, also on the zoning board of appeals. You're putting in some 12-unit things, and you're gonna put fire suppression in all of those?
It's required under the building code, yeah, you need to put.
Yeah, it has to be under the building.
It is, yeah, so there will be fire suppression in all of these buildings. I think it's 3 units and over, you need to have a sprinkler. 4, okay, great, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And and we'll be showing the
Oh,
fire
hold on, we're
suppression
gonna-
lines on the plans in the revised set.
In the back. Yeah.
Amanda, 15 Buffy Drive. Just had a question on the density of this project and that corner at Chico, it's that one where the powder mill is not a great corner, especially. But don't know if anyone's thought about a traffic study or how these persons impact that, whether most people coming from this development will go down to powder mill to get this. Was my concern of that area. We went to the Cardona traffic, for instance, considering that.
Has there been any, do you guys have any?
We haven't submitted a traffic study. If that is the pleasure of the board, then we can discuss that.
We'll certainly talk about that issue.
Okay.
Let me just get some new folks.
That's Traffic Canada. I'm over at 56 South Blue Drive at these days as well. A couple of questions. You've answered a lot of things already. Narrative addendum talks about some reasonable protection as far as noise, lighting, flooding, that kind of thing. I'm not really aware of what the topography is like in this new proposed development. You mentioned some flood dam, drainage, that sort of thing, which I'm not technically too familiar with. But I'm wondering if the water department in the town is at this point considering some of the extreme weather that's predicted in the future as far as flooding, that sort of thing. If that will be something that could not only affect the proposed property, but, you know, the adjoining premises. For example, on one side and then south through the other.
So the stormwater management system is designed to meet the Mass DEP standards, which does take into consideration certain extreme weather events. You know, until DEP sort of updates their standards to address climate change issues and that sort of thing, we're meeting the standards and the design does, but we do have some revisions that we do know need to happen based on the specifics of this site.
So that's almost another issue for the town to look at. It has to adjust on the way it looks at. You're saying it's looking at things as they should now, right? You're looking at things now, but any changes that might have to be made moving forward would be
If
in
it was-
another area, not.
Sure, if the zoning bylaw had a specific provision that discussed those types of items, then our project would need to meet those, but that's not running at this point, so.
And I do believe it's a 100-year storm it's designed to. Is that what it is now? Is that it's designed to a 100-year storm under the?
Which may not be enough moving forward. And my other question, I appreciate if you explained some south rail trail, the tree line that's already there, you know, a little thin, but it's there, and then there's going to be some more planting, and we don't know exactly what I'm just wondering from a practical point of view, we've got some people, some of our basins and condominiums are very close to the rail trail. I'm wondering, what will we see? What will we hear? Will we be impacted at all from this new proposed development?
Well, it's a residential development, so typically it's not gonna be a huge noise generator. It's not, it's not something that's, making widgets at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, it's gonna have the noise impact as any residential development would. Hopefully the nighttime hours, it's gonna be quiet, and, daytime it's gonna be active. So, from a noise perspective, I don't see there being a major concern. I feel like if I'm remembering the plans correctly, let's go look at I feel like we had a proposed fence as well, maybe not. I think what makes this section along the bike trail a little tricky is because of the stormwater management systems that need to be put into place here that do take up, like I said earlier, a lot of real estate on the plans, and we do need significant space in order to capture the stormwater coming from this site. We could look at, I have to go look at the plans a little deeper. There may be a fence in there. If not, if there's space, we could potentially put it in certain sections. I don't know if we could do it along the whole length, but that is something that we could potentially look at, just to provide additional buffer. Also note that it's not just the tree line, but the slope. So the development will be, so the rail trail is lower than the site. So it'll be higher up from what you can see. So from the trail, you would probably just be looking at earth and then trees above that.
And so the storm drainage, is that like a pit? You mentioned some walls, and again, I'm wondering just visually, what will we see?
So they're generally just depressions in the ground. To sort of just explain a site plan, each of these lines represents 1 foot. So the closer the lines are together, the steeper that means. And so if you sort of try to visualize that is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet between the top of the basin and the bottom of it. And so the water systems, I'm not a stormwater engineer. I don't play one on TV. I'm not going to pretend to. So I can do the best that I can to explain the nitty gritty of stormwater. I know enough to get me in trouble, but that's about it. But the system is designed so that the water is captured. And under the stormwater system, stormwater regulations in Massachusetts, the rain that falls and hits the ground, the rate of the rainfall before it's developed has to be matched post-development. So there can't be any change in the volume of the water before development and after development. So the system is designed to make sure that those pre and post numbers are exactly the same. And it takes a lot of math and a lot of calculating and a lot of ingenuity of the engineers to make sure that the systems work in place. Because of the slope of the site, the stormwater basins needed to be placed on this side of the site. So of the applicant a little bit, some units were lost because we had to accommodate for the stormwater. We really do design for the stormwater. So there's piping systems, there's dry basins. Don't ask me to explain them. I just know that the way that it's designed, it functions currently under the stormwater regulations. But like I said earlier, we do have to make some modifications based on DPW comments.
So unless there's other board comments or questions that we want to talk before
She had mentioned the 100-year, and I think we recently adapted in town.
This is the old one.
Oh, it's on the old one.
Yep.
Okay, never mind.
So, all right, so I'm gonna, we've gotten through a bunch of this today. This is obviously needs to be continued since we still need to deal with changes to the plans. And we will continue this on to 7/25 on September 7th.
And can I just get a clarification from the board on the number of additional items that we need to provide you based on the conversation after you make your motion? Sorry.
So I am gonna, as far as what DPW dealing with?
No, other items
today?
besides DPW, above and beyond.
I'm gonna
Who's this?
Sir,
Is it on the app?
we're going to continue it on, the hearing's going to still be open, but we're going to continue the hearing to September 7th. Okay? You know, I think that the traffic issue is something that needs to be looked at in that intersection. I just, you know, how that gets addressed, we can figure out, but I think it needs to be, there has to be discussion about it, so.
So I would say that if a formal traffic impact study is being asked, we're gonna need some lead time for that, so that's,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
that, what I want to do at first is see what we have in town
Okay,
on that before we,
sure,
you know, so
okay,
I want to not recreate the wheel
Okay.
to the extent we have anything, so.
okay.
We'll get back to you on that. There was, I think, you know, I think, again, just looking again at the buffering by the rail trail and making sure that the buffers, and I think it's appropriate to look at what is being removed, if you can have your folks calculate that. Those are the three things that jump to my mind, if there's anything else.
So I've got a
Does that
concept.
include the- I
Yep.
get I'm sorry, the satellite view with the.
Yep,
the
so,
Oh, and I'm
so
sorry,
if I
yes, I
can,
did.
yeah, so
Thank you.
if I can just rattle down my list and then you guys confirm whether I'm on.
Can I make a suggestion, please?
So we have a concept for the full 100 units on one sheet. Doesn't matter what the scale is, just for conceptual.
Yep.
Taking that concept, putting it on an aerial map, including the adjacent developments, providing some measurements from the units on the developments to the closest units on those boundaries. Okay. And then a number of square feet of vegetative, total tree removal for the project. Okay. Those are the items that I've got.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Point of information on the meeting date is Rosh Hashanah. I don't know if that matters.
You guys okay with that Wednesday?
Which day is this?
To be fair, I actually have my kids have the day off, so I have to sort of deal with that too, but,
I got a hangnail that day.
I'll go either way, but it's, if you guys have Wednesday, I think that's appropriate to do it on the Wednesday, but,
Haven't we already continued hearings to the 7th?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna
We
ask.
can't go
that is a
changing it.
fair point you have, so I think we have to do it on the 7th.
Sorry.
That's- And it's not a provision in the bylaws or the general laws to, so I think we have to.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we have to, we should make sure we catch that next time we go over the calendar.
Mike?
Oh, no, hold on, please. All right, so you have your list. Anything else that needed to be on the list? Okay. All right, then 7:25?
7:25.
Okay, so we'll do a motion to continue.
Do you want to address what people?
Do we?
You want the
We'll
truth?
do a motion to continue this to 7:25 on September 7th. Do I hear
Moved.
a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. We're
Too late.
we're continuing it on. I mean, it's still open, so you have an opportunity at the next meeting to address anything that,
Well, it was something that we could use for the next meeting, if it's not have someone from the water commission to be here so that they can explain.
I have no authority to command the water commissioners to show up to my meeting, so I can't do it. So you can go and contact any of the water commissioners you want and ask them to show up if you want. And they may very well have a meeting before that. I don't know when their next meeting will be, but,
You did very well.
all right.
You could take two,
I get to take two?
at least. After tonight.
7:25, 217 College Highway, site plan review, continued discussion. Thank you, Jessica.
Appreciate it.
Close the meeting, sir?
The public hearing's been, so, yes.
Meeting is still open. We're on the next item, 217 College Highway.
Is
You can
Mr.
come on up
Utzinger
and-
still in attendance on Zoom? As he was absent on the 5:25 meeting that this was opened on.
What?
He was absent when this was opened.
He's here.
Okay, so I just want to make sure
Good.
he's
Still
here.
here. Yeah. Yep, no, he's good. Good, how are you?
I don't think,
All right. You were present.
I was present. I haven't been officially designated because none of it officially stepped. And Dick supposedly listened to the meeting minutes inside an affidavit.
Okay, so this is the continued public hearing of the proposed daycare facility. Folks, if you're gonna have discussions, if you could please go out into the hallway, that would be great, thank you.
Yeah, it's not a hearing.
No, it's just a continued discussion on site plan review for a care facility. Okay. So we have a revised plan, and I'll let whoever wants to speak to it. If you guys want to speak to the revised plan or not, we can.
If you want to talk about the revisions you made?
Yeah, sure. Luckily, Brian Blicky with Sage Engineering, here with Mike Ryan, attorney for the Lynch family. We were last in front of the board, if I recall correctly, June 8th. We were sent back with some feedback on some design changes, and short and sweet version of it is the building was moved to be 50 feet off the property line to the back, which allows for a 30-foot no disturb buffer. We specified some arborvitae plantings and a solid fence. The 30-foot buffer was maintained as well on this side of the property. And the driveway was moved to be 15 feet away from the western property line. And where there's no existing vegetation, solid fencing was relocated, or sorry, proposed, excuse me.
I believe you also changed it, put in a sidewalk on.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Sidewalk along the edge of the driveway for access to Vining Hill Road and back. The playground, again, was relocated from about 8 feet off the property line that would leave that 30-foot buffer. And a sidewalk was added to connect the playground to the parking lot as not requested by the fire department. Those are the major changes to the site since the last presentation.
So let me tell you the way I look at it, and then we can kind of go from it, which is this. I certainly like the changes you made as far as the buffer on the back. I think that's good. I think putting in a sidewalk is good. We can talk about the location, but I think putting in a sidewalk is good. You know, and I think everybody on the board has said we have zero problem when we think it's good to have another daycare facility in town. The problem with this plot of land has always been, it is tight in what you're trying to do, and you have a right of way to deal with. And I still have some issues with how we're going to deal with it. And so I'll tell you what they are. One is, so you came into this with an existing gravel driveway, which runs through the 20-foot right of way on the west side of the property, about halfway. And then there's not even halfway. And then there's some tree line there that has been put in over the right of way. And not your issue, I mean, not your fault, not anything you've done.
Natural trees.
Natural trees have been put over where the right of way is. So they're blocking the right of way, so that gravel driveway has curved over outside of the right of way and continued on to where these homeowners have their two properties in the back. So, you know, that's an existing issue, but not necessarily a planning board issue, but an existing issue. But now you're coming in and you are changing and putting obstructions in the right of way. And are you giving a right of way over the driveway that comes into are you granting a right of way to to the property owners in the back that extends out over to that, where they can come in?
And most of the proposed driveway honors where that old gravel was anyway. But legally, there will have to be an easement modification to continue to get them access.
I mean, as I look at the plan, I see maybe 5 feet of that. I think most of that driveway coming into the daycare center is not in the right of way. And I could be, I mean, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but
I'm not saying you are, but the existing driveway, like you said, flirts in and out of that right of way. And the Hanushas are definitely agreeable to modifying the language of that to allow the right of way to pass over the driveway. So that the access is maintained and improved to be a paved surface at that point.
all right. The other things that I see is, I think the sidewalk, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. I think the sidewalk realistically has to be on the other side. I don't think having them cross over where cars are going to get to a sidewalk and then crossing over. Realistically, the sidewalk has to be on that far side.
No objection to that.
So one of the things that I wasn't sure about, I know we talked about there's a homeowner on the west side who has built a driveway going to a garage that has no right of way to use that area. What is being, I mean, I saw an opening in the fence, but how are they getting to that opening?
Well, that's I mean, again, it's not a planning board issue, that's a private issue between two landowners.
I agree that.
I mean,
but
he obviously encroached on the property, and so if the Hanushas want to be kind to them to provide them access, that'll be under their jurisdiction, not this board's jurisdiction.
No, but I care less about that and more about moving that sidewalk to that side. And so I'm wondering, you know, if that.
If they choose to let them access, they can drive over the sidewalk like every situation where driveways go over sidewalks.
But again, it's.
But you're not.
Frank Demarinis, I'm with Sage Engineering, we're representing the Hanushas.
But it would, you're not building a driveway for that particular entrance to that adjoining parcel.
We are not.
We would have to treat the existing driveway.
So
like this.
as a planning board, we wouldn't want to leave it open with, if they want to drive over the sidewalk they don't have access to that right of way, they shouldn't be.
They don't have access, legal access to it.
So leaving an opening, in my opinion, would be inviting them to continue to utilize a right of way that they shouldn't have. And if we are proposing that that's where you put a sidewalk, you don't want them driving over the sidewalk where children could be walking to pull into an illegal right of way. Yeah, so.
Children walk down sidewalks all the time, and there's driveways that cross them millions. So it's not.
Well, we're approving a site plan, right? And we're just trying to make it so that it works.
You're reviewing the site plan.
We're reviewing and endorsing the site plan.
Right.
Yes.
We want to endorse a smart plan, not one that just leaves holes.
Well, we can leave the sidewalk the side that it's at.
I don't think that that's appropriate to have a sidewalk for these folks. What you're doing is you're creating a traffic impediment and to some degree fence impediment over the existing right of way. And now you're saying, okay, well, we're gonna put this sidewalk here for you, but you have to cross over the parking lot twice to get to the sidewalk. And I don't think that that's necessarily appropriate. And when I think that it's quite appropriate or easy enough to put the sidewalk on that side, cut off the access to that other property, which has no access to the right of way. I mean, you should be protecting the people with the right of way because they have a legal right in that property. Those people.
But we don't have an obligation to fight their fight with that left side of butter. I mean, if the people, I mean, we own the right of way. We own the property subject to the right of way. People in back have the right of way. If they feel that the people left of the property are impinging on their ability, or the Hanushas feel that they need to stop it, we got to file an action.
So
I guess the moral of the story is you'd like us to continue the fence across there and put the sidewalk in the left-hand driveway, and they can work out their legal access between themselves because it's no longer going to be provided to be there because they don't have a right to use it.
Correct.
So we're going to take care of that by continuing the fence.
Correct. I mean,
I think we'd all be agreeable to that on our side of it.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty reasonable solution to protect the people who are now going to be using the sidewalk to get to their residence, which had zero traffic on it before, other than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a change. It's a change to the right of way, and you have to protect the right of way. I mean, it's an existing legal right. I don't,
We have no problem with continuing the fence across there and putting the sidewalk on the west side of the driveway.
The other thing that I see is, I think you need to, I think you have to have something, whether it's a sign or something that is going to keep people from parking or blocking that gravel, right, that, yeah. So there's gotta be something that sort of says, you know, don't park here, or don't continue onto the gravel way, it's private property. There's gotta be something that just delineates that, simple change, but just something I think is appropriate, again, to deal with that right away. And then I think you have to, you have some trees designated in the back. I think we gotta put in some bigger trees that, you know, are not gonna take 5-6 years to get up to 6 feet, 7 feet.
They're spec'd at 6 to 8 foot out of the gate.
Maybe I'm missing it. I read the 2-gallon as being 1 to 2 to start, but
no,
maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right, I'm wrong, I apologize, I was reading the wrong note.
I'm talking about the arborvitae that are 2-gallon arborvitaes. I think those have to be, you know, bigger out of the gate, to sort of, or faster, you know, faster growing out of the gate. I'm not the tree person, I'll leave it to these two right here. But you know, I just think those have to be a little bit more protection rather than 5-6 years down the line, you can get some protection from it.
Are they for noise abatement or for visual? Because you have a solid fence across there.
Yeah, I think it's
right?
to provide a little bit more natural harmony to just a white fence.
So you have a 6-foot fence, and it's, you know, if you can have something that at least getting up to 6 feet within a reasonable timeframe.
So if we change them like a 4 to 6, whatever.
So the vegetation's on the outside of the fence?
Correct, it's just more visual with the change there.
Yeah.
So,
We definitely can change it to like a fast white pine and fill up really quick.
Arborvitae are better.
Okay.
White pine get awful
I mean,
messy.
I think you can have a fast growing arborvitae out there, that, or at least a little bit bigger arborvitae.
So if we started them at 4 feet, they would be.
I think that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about it, but I just quickly Googled it and it said 1 foot and it grows a foot a year, and I thought that was a little bit,
sure,
you know, long. All right, I mean, I don't have anything else other than that. Like I said, but I think there has to be, and it probably has to be, you know, noted on the site plan review that there's gonna be a right-of-way change. I mean, there's gonna be a right-of-way given to that, to those owners.
Make it a condition that we'll prepare an instrument that.
Correct.
That gives them access, full access over the entire new area for a right of way through there. We have no problem with that.
Yeah, and that's fine, and
Because that's the intent here.
I think it's appropriate to correct the existing condition and grant them the right of way over the gravel part that, you know, extends past the paved part, because that is now outside of the right of way.
And then they don't have to take down those natural trees and everything.
Correct.
We don't have a problem.
I think that's better for you
providing that
folks to
easement,
have
as a part of the
trees there.
condition for this.
Yeah, we'll clean everything up.
Yep. All right, I think that's, you know, for me, that's fine. Anybody else have anything with this? No? Okay. All right, so why don't you submit the site plan with those changes on it, put that condition on it, and we'll sign it at the next meeting on September 7th.
Okay.
All right. If we get it, yeah, why don't we just do it, because we're looking at it anew, why don't we look at it on September 7th and we'll just sign it right then.
We'll have it too well ahead of that.
Yeah, and it's just probably, there's a number of them, so rather than sort of put it on each member to kind of go in and try to look at it individually, we'll just do it once on September 7th. It's not gonna add, I don't think, a ton of time to the process anyways.
And we'll include a draft copy of the easement modification of the instrument for that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
September 7th?
September 7th,
It's 9 PM?
Should you, is the public comment open or closed with this?
There's no hearing.
There's no hearing.
It's
It's
just
just a
a
discussion, so-
review and suggested changes, and then we'd endorse the site plan.
Yeah, so what I'll do is we'll just put it on at like 7:06. And
I
so we'll
appreciate
just, if there's any issue, I mean, you guys don't need to, we can tell you whether there's any issue probably beforehand. John will look at it and tell you, but you guys can come or not come, but we'll get it signed and ready to go.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. All right.
Oh, now the easy.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
41 and 51 John Mason Road, special permit modification, continued public hearing.
Chairman, I gotta excuse myself from this meeting.
Lovely. How are you?
Good.
That's good. All right, hold on 1 minute. Let me just get the pile of stuff.
Mike,
Dick.
I need to recuse myself because the party works for an accounting firm that I do business with.
We already got that on record. You're good. I'm gonna.
He just wanted to go have some ice cream.
All right. All right. So everybody had an opportunity to look through at least the stuff that was submitted at the last, on the day of the last hearing. There's been a couple things submitted at the end of last week, and is there a letter today?
Something got sent out today, which I didn't see yet.
There's no letters.
This letter from Ms. Kelly,
Okay.
and one Friday from the state of
Okay. All right. Everybody had an opportunity to look at everything?
Except for the thing that happened today, but that's okay, I can catch up. Or the letter is for today. Beautiful.
All right. Let's start, unless you guys have anything that you needed to add.
No, just for the record, Randy Brown, 95 Fred Jackson Road.
Freda Brown, 39 John Mason.
Thank you. Any questions or comments that the board had, at least now for the applicant, based on what was submitted?
No.
Anything? Okay. All right. Do you have anything that you wanted to present tonight, other than what was submitted? Is there anything you wanted to say or expand upon?
Just to briefly sum up what our objections are, but we have no new information necessarily to provide to the board.
Okay, if you have a quick little thing, you feel free to do it, but that's fine.
First of all, we'd like to thank the board for their time and attention to this matter. We don't believe that this special permit application meets the requirements of the Southwick zoning bylaws. There are procedural problems with this permit based on the fact that there is no valid permit for this property right now. So when the board makes a decision, it should do so under the framework of an initial special permit application in light of the lack of valid permit today. As we pointed out before, we think there's compelling evidence that this application changes the primary use of the property, that an alcohol sales permit is the tail that wags the dog. We believe that the trailer issue is absolutely prohibited under the Southwick bylaws. The sanitation continues to be of a concern, traffic safety is a concern, and suitability for the neighborhood is something that the board should strongly consider in light of the fact that we've had over 40 people sign petitions, writing letters, and speaking against this project. Given all of that, we think the record before the board demonstrates that this should be done. We appreciate your consideration.
I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question on that. Hold on 1 second. Oh, the trailer. So, I mean, if I read your position, it sounds like you're saying that Southwick can't have food trucks.
According to the bylaw 185-32, Southwick does not allow trailers. This application describes the structure as a trailer. It doesn't describe something that is on wheels, it's a food truck. As far as what else the bylaws allow or don't allow, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that when this is described as a trailer, it's contemplated as a more permanent structure, and that's what it is.
I think everything I've heard from the Browns has been indicative of this as a come in and off food truck type
Is that what it,
scenario as opposed to a permanent trailer structure.
No, it's not permanent. I mean, that is a seasonal facility, so it's permanent on the property.
what is proposed to be, is it, I guess, what is the structure that's proposed for the food service?
It would be a trailer mounted unit, so it would be able to be on wheels, likely be a registered vehicle or registered trailer. It's something that would be obviously mobile.
So that you move it off-site in the image.
Absolutely. So food trucks come both as a full body, one solid truck, but they also can be pulled by a regular truck and a trailer attachment to the back. That's my understanding. That makes sense. So again, are we suggesting that food trucks or pulled trailer food trucks, however they're mounted, are not allowed? I don't think that's.
No, and I mean, I'm not even sure I'd go as far as to say that they can't be, it depends on what it, and is that one mounted on wheels over at Howard's? Must be, right? You know, like that. So that's on wheels.
Yeah.
You know, I know Brewery had it for a while.
The brewery, West River Brewery does have a unit that's similar to what we have in mind. We haven't purchased one yet. We have ideas, but that's one that we have in mind that we're looking to use as a model.
But I think there's a difference. I think trailers are meant to be, you know, your commercial trailer units that people are storing stuff in, or trailers that people are living in sort of permanently rather than food trucks. You know, maybe our bylaws need some degree of revision to sort of address the food truck movement. But I mean, I do think that that's how they've been interpreted throughout town by this board and other boards, is that mobile food trucks or mobile trailers, whatever you want to call them, have been allowed in town. And certainly it appears that that's the health director's.
I was going to say, which would make sense by Ms. Spencer's interpretation and position.
And if I may, that's part of the concern of why we keep bringing up the procedural issues. The board's indicated it wants to vote, but this special permit application doesn't appear to be fully baked. We don't know what the structure is going to look like. It's not before the board, and we don't believe that there's been sufficient information. This has been described variously in the writings as a trailer, as a structure where it's not just a mobile food truck on wheels that can come in and out daily, but it's integrated into the facility where they'll be collecting fees and handling the disc golf business side as well as food, as well as alcohol. So there is some lack of clarity here that we can't control.
Okay. Sorry.
The initial site plan change that came back in February. From my memory, that site plan change that we looked at then, but my memory serves is that it was indicative that you were going to have like a concrete pad or a gravel pad site. Like this, we have a food truck come on site, this is where it's going to go. Is that?
It would be in the, yeah, we have a spot identified on the site plan where that.
That's what I'm trying to pull up here.
I have it on my computer if you can find my Italian. It'd probably be easy to, okay.
Over there, or the line work?
I think the color PDF is probably the better one.
If you want to share that.
Sure. Let me see.
I think it's got to go.
Okay.
So that blue square, kind of in the left middle of the figure is the location of the trail.
Which is what, about 30 40 feet by 25 feet, something like that? Is that what, I'm just looking at the parking spots and kind of jumping on.
Well, it would be a trailer that you could travel over the road, so it wouldn't be 25 feet. That might be the pad site,
That's
kind
what
of
I'm
like
wondering.
where.
Is there going to be an actual pad site that you're pouring, or is that on the?
That's on the existing
On the
millings
existing?
pile right now, so probably right on top of that, maybe reinforced a little bit, but that's the location of it.
Okay. All right.
And that's where the transaction would take place, within that square there, that triangle, that rectangle.
Okay. All right. Let me just read in so we have it. Oh, I gave it to him.
Oh, the latest letter. The letter that came today.
Oh. Well, actually, you know what? I
Scan it in.
Yeah, part of it, or my problem with it is that it's not signed. So it's on behalf of some of the residents of John Mason Road, but it's not a signed letter. So let me just, hold on. It came over from Jessica Pelly, but, okay. It's not, but it's not the name of it.
On the top and the bottom. Can I be able to find that?
No. All right. Well, let me read this in, and then we will, one last round of questions if people have them, and then we'll close this hearing. This is dated August 8th, 2021. I can only tell you that it came from Jessica Pelly via email. This letter is being written on behalf of some of the residents of John Mason Road in concern over the request to modify the New England Disc Golf Center special permit for 4151 John Mason Road for the Randall Brown to include the serving of alcohol. The residents of John Mason Road have the following valid concerns. Inability of Randall Brown to maintain a special permit on an annual basis. When they obtained the special permit, they should have made themselves aware of the requirements that were expected of them and took it seriously while noting that it required an annual renewal. Instead, it took 5 years for it to be brought up at a planning board meeting while requesting yet another modification to their property usage that the special permit was never renewed on an annual basis. To this date, it still has not been renewed, and the planning board came up with the excuse that the town has no other special permits like this, and this is a unique situation. The planning board may not oversee the special permit or ensure the owner is following the rules, but they do make the stipulation of the special permit based upon the owner's request and agreement by the owner to follow the rules of the special permit. It is, however, the responsibility of the owner to follow through and to know what is being requested of them. It is the town's responsibility to ensure the owner is following the requirements of the special permit. It is irresponsible of the representative of the town to not take responsibility in ensuring those requirements are met annually. It doesn't matter if it was the only special permit in the town issued or the 10th one issued. Individuals are responsible. If the planning board is going to make modifications and allow things, then they need to make the town aware of it in order for them to take action when necessary. It doesn't just affect the owner, it affects the community that surrounds the disc golf center if those requirements are not met. Ensure us that it will be addressed, but it still has not been addressed, and the disc golf center continues to run without a legal active permit and has done so for the past 4 years. These are valid concerns, and the request for modification to obtain an alcohol permit will pose the same concerns and issues, as this obviously wasn't taken seriously initially by providing follow-through with both the owner and the town Now everyone is scrambling around. Either a fine should have been instituted or a letter of warning issued after 1 year of no follow-through. It is not the responsibility of the residents of John Mason, but of the town and the owner of that special permit to follow through, just as we residents must pay our tax bill, dog licenses, dump stickers, etc. on a yearly basis or face penalties of some sort. 2, a video has been attached, though it was not attached, of how vehicles currently speed on this narrow, partially dirt road on the weekends. This is a residential road and used as a cut-through, but since the disc golf center opened up, we now see more and more speeding vehicles that tend to disregard that this is a residential area with a road that already has maintenance issues and is very narrow. This road is used by many individuals that walk alone with spouses, friends, children, and pets. Adding alcohol, drinking, and driving to this area increases risk to injury, fatalities, and increased drunk drivers. To address the comments Chair Michael Doherty made in regard to the residents of John Mason Road requesting the road remain a dirt road, this issue was discussed, addressed, and closed with former DPW Director Jeff Neese. You are asking us to modify our choice of life to accommodate one neighbor's request to provide alcohol to her patrons while they are in between playing rounds of disc golf. We think that's quite unfair of you to bring up this subject and try to distract what is at hand and start pointing fingers at the residents of this area, causing an issue with the road because they didn't want it paved. Why should we, the residents of John Mason Road, make adjustments to our way of living because 2 residents want to haul gravel, open a disc golf center, or obtain an alcohol license and benefit with their business while we all suffer the repercussions of a potential decision to destroy a beautiful residential area with the effects of serving alcohol? There are other areas of town that are better suited for the selling of alcoholic beverages, with this not being one of them. To address Mr. Doherty's remarks at the last meeting, according to the town records dated August 23, 2012, it states that John Mason Road is unaccepted, privately owned road by the residents, and that the DPW is responsible for undertaking the proper maintenance of the road to allow for emergency vehicle access in the interest of public safety. That cannot be correct, Randy, right? It's not a private road.
It is no.
Okay, I don't think I picked up on that the first time around. All right, let me keep going. Adding the modification to a special permit to allow alcohol is not responsible and irresponsible of the planning board to the residents of John Mason Road and the surrounding areas. It was stated in the last meeting that disc golf is making a profit this year. Isn't that enough to you? You are making a profit without impacting the neighbors negatively. Yes, we are a recreational community, but are we really a recreational community that promotes mixing alcohol and recreation in residential areas that are not designed to host this sort of requests? There is not a lot of police monitoring in this area for speeders and drunk drivers. Let us ask you, planning board members, if you would want alcohol served in your residential neighborhoods. Would it make sense to do something like that in your neighborhoods? We live in the same type of neighborhood. Just because the road connects between Klaus Anderson and Fred Jackson doesn't make it any less of a residential area with children riding bikes, people walking their pets, and those just enjoying the beauty of our neighborhoods out and about. Loud noise / music has been heard several times on the weekends, July 4th weekend and July 24th weekend, from behind the woods where the disc golf is located. It was hard to tell exactly where it was coming from, but it was definitely from the back area and heard all the way on Klaus Anderson Road. There was even one Sunday evening a few months ago where live music was heard. Having the occasional gathering in the neighborhood is one thing, but to have it weekly is not acceptable, and according to the special permit, loud music is not allowed. Can Ms. Brown read that part of the special permit? She claimed the music didn't come from her property. After one of the neighbors drove down there and listened to the music, it definitely came from that area center. We'd like to see their strategic growth plan for the next 5 years. We don't want any more surprises or yet another modification be requested that is unsuitable for this residential area. The gates as of 8:20 p.m. on August 9th was not closed for the requirements of the special permit for the disc golf center. There have been plenty of other nights the gate has not been closed as well. According to town records dated October and November 2007, a correspondence was initiated due to complaints of John Mason Road residents between the Southwick Police Department and the Southwick Board of Selectmen in regards to speeding vehicles, which to date has still not been addressed. The chief of police at the time said the following: 1, that's how it would be the organization to set the posted speed limit. 2, they will only set a posted speed limit after the town of Southwick pays for and conducts a traffic survey. 3, John Mason Road is not on the mass highway list for posted streets. Further documents provided by the town, there are numerous complaints from 2003 up through the current date regarding the maintenance of the road, safety conditions, and speeding on this road. Documents provide correspondence between all sorts of departments within the town, ranging from the DPW to the chief of police to the chief administrative officer for the town of Southwick, that have still not been addressed. To potentially add additional traffic from the proposed modifications that include a food cart, alcohol, or other amenities being requested by the owners The disc golf course center will be detrimental to the condition of our road safety and quintessential ruralness that is enjoyed by the local residents of this area. The grounds received their special permit for a disc golf center. They are currently doing well now. Please don't let them push the envelope by expanding their business that is located in a very rural residential area. How many more modifications does the planning board need to make for them with disregard to the surrounding neighbors and neighborhoods, and to ignore that the initial requirements of the permit were not followed? What happens in another 3 to 5 years when they request to have live music, or they decide to host a regional or national event and the traffic flow really builds up in this residential area with people drinking alcohol and are invading our neighborhoods? Remember, this is a narrow road that is partially paved. Maybe we request that the police department post one of their speed clocks so they can see how fast people drive down this road. We wish Freda Brown and her son Randy success with their disc golf center, but not at the expense of our residential neighborhoods. We realize that the planning board wants to bring revenue into our town as we have big expenses with the schools, parks, etc., but be thoughtful in the town's strategic plan for the next 10 years. Look seriously at how you want to grow this town thoughtfully and to maintain its beauty and ruralness without disrupting the agricultural, the rural neighborhoods, and wildlife. Look at the design of building requests, what types of businesses you bring to the town, the type of clientele you want brought to this town, the types of homes you want built in it. Most importantly, the location of where you allow alcohol permits based on yet another modification to a special permit that was never abided by in the first case. Thank you. Okay. So I think the board's been provided with what's referred to in here. If they haven't, as far as I know, there's an undated letter from Jessica Pelly. There's an email from Jessica Pelly from June 7th of 2021. And there is, where's the thing from? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. And then there is the memorandum from police chief to the Suffolk Board of Selectmen dated November 28th of 2007. Those are the three things that I have ever seen about complaints on John Mason Road that are in this town. So and I think those, you guys can look at them, but those are what's been submitted and pulled from what we have. You know, I don't want to conflate two things. This is not, we are not granting an alcohol permit. That's not what we do. That's not what this board does. To serve alcohol, they need to go to the select board and get an alcohol license, a liquor license from them. And they also have to get, I don't know if that's been resolved, but get the ability to do so through the, what is it called now? The,
ABA?
AB.
Or
ABC.
ABC, thank you.
Something like that. So those are the licenses to sell alcohol. We are dealing with use and site plans. That is what we are dealing with. We already spent 6 or 7 months back in whatever year going over the uses of disc golf course. To my knowledge, there's been no complaints in town prior to this application about the disc golf course. And so I don't want to conflate two things between uses of disc golf course and this. This is a very limited modification that is being requested. I appreciate that there have been issues with what was in the special permit. Again, I don't know why they were put in. I appreciate that there's been suggestions as to why they may have been put in. But, you know, I wasn't there at the time that it was signed or the decision was discussed and signed, so I don't know. I was not at the meeting. Let me be very clear. I was not at the meeting where the decision was discussed and signed. So I didn't have any input into why those conditions got into that decision and it was signed. So I don't have a memory because I wasn't at that meeting. And I think that's very clear. And I don't know why they were in there, but, you know, I also don't see any objection. I haven't really heard, and it seems like it's been suggested that people are fine with a disc golf course operating there in the way it's been operating for the last 5 or 6 years. There really hasn't been any complaint whatsoever, and it doesn't sound like there's really any objection to that. And so while I appreciate that we sort of need to, you know, figure out how we're going to set this up, whether there's going to be some permit system now where you have to come back every year or whatever it is. I don't, or just have a special permit. We have to figure that out, but I'm not sure that there's any issue with the underlying use. I think really what we need to talk about is the modification. And again, I'm not sure. I see it as a planning board issue, but anybody have any comments before we, keep going, and any board comments before we close the hearing?
I'll say, it's unfortunate that we don't understand why the previous board said that they didn't want to have the alcohol there. I'd really like to know that, frankly, but I don't know. Frankly, I don't have any problem with just about any other aspect of it. I think just golf course use is fine. The big question in my mind still remains the alcohol in a residential neighborhood. Not real. I don't think I'm real comfortable with that.
Well,
everything else about it, I don't have
I
a
would
problem.
just say that, I've got a lot of thoughts about this, but in following in that line, we have a lot of interest in town about commercial recreation opportunities. Commercial recreation often happens in residential zoned areas because of the bigger parcels. I don't see the potential addition of a food or beverage truck on occasion as being a complete change of use. I don't see it as a tail wagging the dog type scenario as been suggested. I also don't like this like pre-crime notion that we're already accusing disc golf members of drinking and driving and being inappropriate. That's not for me to say what grown adults do as they're there. And as an adult myself, and also as a child attending commercial recreation with my adult family members, whether it's softball or bowling, bocce courts, horseshoe leagues, all sorts of things have the addition of food and beverage along with that recreation. So I really don't see this as that big of a change. It's been mentioned in some of the notes by residents how little business you do, and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to make any change to your business. I don't think that's an appropriate viewpoint to have either. I think this is a small, measured approach. You're not asking to build a permanent structure bar where you're going to be open 365, offering it. You're offering it to the people who are coming during specific times. And I think that is an absolutely appropriate offering to offer people who are coming to this area. As far as residential communities and being a rural road, it stopped being a rural road in the early 2000s when we went from 6 homes to 15 homes approximately. The safety issue with regards to the road, I myself took my car down there after the opening of this hearing to kind of just really get my eyes on it. I don't know why anybody would walk their dog on that street. I don't know why anybody would let their kids ride their bike. I don't know why you would think to push a stroller up and down the road. It's so rocky, I can't imagine doing it myself. And I could understand why you might feel like it's dangerous to be walking on that side of the road and having a car come by you, because it is a small road. And I think paving it and putting in the appropriate drainage and making it the appropriate width would only help the neighborhood. Trying to keep it, everybody keeps saying it's this rural road, it's this rural. Southwick is, in this area, it's not really rural anymore. When John Mason sold his property and had it divided off, and we started building houses on Fred Jackson and on Claus Anderson, I don't see this as this lone dirt road where there's only 1 or 2 houses on it. It connects to other side streets and people utilize the road. I feel bad for the UPS drivers who have to deliver on it right now. So all of those issues, I don't think are reason to deny somebody from using property in an appropriate way. So I think that's where I'm at.
Any other board comments before we close the hearing?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the 2 items actually both of them involve the Board of Health. One of them is the sanitary facilities, and I think the full Board of Health, not just the health agent, should have been apprised of this. I don't know if they're aware of it or not, but there should have been an agenda item on their meeting to discuss that requirement that Tom Fitzgerald wrote and that the Board of Health apparently approved or agreed to, that there would be some permanent sanitary facility installed, not just porta potties. And the other one is the trailer situation. And there's definitely a bylaw, 18532, and it says the Board of Health issues a permit, not the health agent. And again, I think the Board of Health should have been involved and taken up the matter to see and clarify what this food trailer is going to be. It's not a food truck. It's not like one of these trucks you see running around and they go to the different events. It's going to be a trailer that sits there. And we have a bylaw, 18532, that is designed to manage and control those installations.
What I
So,
mean is, are you telling me, and it's the same question that I asked before, are you telling me that every food truck in this town is illegal?
no, they're licensed.
Exactly.
But this is it's a different situation. It's not a food truck.
Why?
Why do you say that?
It's the same thing.
Because it's a trailer. Look at 185.
What you're saying.
Look at 185. I mean, that's
Coward's.
just my position. That's
I mean,
just my
So
position.
Cowards is illegal then?
Well, the
I
ones
have no
brought in
idea.
from-
We're not dealing with Coward. We're dealing with this golf course. And I think the Board of Health
A large number of
should
food
have had
truck,
it on one of their meeting agendas to discuss.
That's a different, so there's two issues. We'll get to the Board of Health one. I'm trying to understand, from our standpoint, 18532, is that what it is? 32? Is, if you have, whether it is a van-like structure or whether it is something on a trailer that you move around, I mean, like I said, I think of the one at the brewery, I think of the one at Coward's.
Look at the Big E.
Or anything, something you have like at the Big E, if there was in town here, I mean, that's what I'm thinking of, and you're telling me that those are not allowed under 18532, in your mind?
At least the Board of Health should.
But that's a different
Look
issue.
at
It's a
them.
different issue.
That's a totally different issue.
Totally different issue.
Yes, they're not allowed unless they're permitted.
So they are allowed when they're permitted.
So if the Board of
Well,
Health.
that's, it's all the way the
then it's
question
not a
is, where the answer is
185
posed.
It's not a 18532 issue.
So they are allowed if they're permitted.
So all we have to do is get a permit.
All right,
Well,
so,
that's the thing we have to be careful when we say up here, which way we say it.
Marcus, let me
We have
ask
to
you
say,
this.
we have to tell you what the law is, not our version of what the law is. So it's like, we just got through saying, him and I just debated a little issue on both sides and came up with the same answer. It's all in the way in which I say it, is how you're gonna interpret it.
Let me ask you this from a logistics, Marcus. If, to sort of create a decision that we can vote on, is a condition that it has to be permitted by the Board of Health, and have the sanitary setup approved by the Board of Health. Is that an appropriate condition, or is it, do you do you need that done before you vote on something?
I would say it has to be done before I vote on something. Because I think they should have the opportunity to weigh in on the matter, since they did when the first special permit was issued. The whole Board of Health.
don't they get a choice
was
to weigh
involved.
in on it when they go before the Board of Health and ask for the permit? We're not the Board of Health.
We're not the Board of Health.
No.
That's not within our purview here. We're here to-
But we
we're
often
here for
defer
site plan
things until
modifications.
Conservation Commission has rendered their decision and issued their opinions.
But the wetland doesn't get up and move at the end of the season.
It might.
And again, when we talk about trailers, there's a couple of different types of trailers. There's trailers that you
Okay,
live in,
Marcus, you
there's
got it.
permanent
Yeah.
trailers that you use when a house burns down, and that, I believe, is what 32 is referencing for the most part. But if you want us to say, well, the trailer of the food truck, yes, a number of food truck companies have box trucks that they physically drive around, and it's attached completely to the drive section. But there are many food trucks that it's a trailer that they use a trailer hitch to their truck, and they drive in, and they drop the trailer off, and if they need to move their truck, they move their truck, and the trailer stays there. So, yeah, you're arguing semantics about one issue, and then the Board of
Let's
Health
do
is the
this,
other.
because it's getting late, and I want to move on to it. Let's do this. Let's continue this on for the sole purpose of, if the Board of Health meets in the meantime, they can offer, that's the limited purpose is if they want to meet and offer their opinion as the Board of Health, because I think they're meeting pretty regularly, they can do so. But otherwise, I'd say we just deal with it with a condition on September 7th. But again, this is one that we need to vote on in writing. We need to sit and look at something in writing before we vote on it. So it would be voted on September 7th anyway. So my inclination is to leave it open for the limited purpose of letting the Board of Health, if they meet, and I'll certainly send them a request to say, take this up if you meet, let them offer their viewpoints on it. The one thing I will address, though, just because I thought it was it was incorrect, I shouldn't say it was incorrect in the letters that were submitted, is, the suggestion that Tom Fitzgerald was there when Randy was not and had this condition, and because Randy's the DPW director now, it's a different story. Randy was there at the time that letter came out from Tom Fitzgerald. Randy was the DPW director since 13, I think. So he was certainly the DPW director at the time that Tom Fitzgerald issued that letter. And again, it's just for point of clarification. I don't think it was done on purpose, but I want to make sure that was
Point of information.
clear.
There still seems to be some confusion over the need for an annual renewal. The annual renewal, I'll suggest, is rooted in the commercial recreation bylaw that requires an annual renewal. You take a look at it right now, you'll find that it requires an annual renewal.
And I've looked at it, and I think I stated at the last meeting what my position on it, or my feeling is that it's talking about a different renewal. It's talking about a different license. It's talking about
62A.
Thank you. It's talking about
61B.
61B, because the language that it's used is clearly not referring to the special permit. Otherwise, the words are given no meaning. So I think it's referring to something else, but that may very well be what caused it to be.
I emphasize it's rooted in it. And the special permit bylaw permits the application of a renewal. And I think the two are connected in the thinking that occurred in 2016.
And that's fine. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be in there. It's going to be up for our discussion when we deliberate the written decision on September 7th. But
I did file my 61B every year.
All right, so do I hear a motion to close?
Can I ask one last question?
Yep.
Close, continue.
Thank you.
Continuous, yeah.
Continue.
getting
Keep
late.
wanting to close these things all the time. What's wrong with you? They have to keep going.
I know.
Recognizing that this board is not the one that's actually going to grant the alcohol permit or whatever, the license, whatever it is. I mean, is the alcohol sales, is that like the key integral part of the plan? Or is it something that's
So
additional bonus part of the whole thing?
in my mind's eye, we have players that come for long distances to come to play our course. We charge a day pass, so they are there all day. So when you are at someplace, at a place that has recreation all day, do you not want to have some food and something to drink? That's all we're asking for, is to have something available so that they can buy from us, and then instead of having to bring it in.
Which I'm wholly supportive of, wholly supportive. The only real question I think is how much is
So-
alcoholic beverage versus, say, a non-alcoholic beverage? How much is that?
I don't think it, well, I think it's not key, but I think it's in relationship to every single venue out there that has recreation.
I mean, if a family of four, if you go with your wife and two kids to go play around, everybody's gonna have a hamburger from the truck. Your wife might have a Diet Coke, the kids are gonna have a water, and you get a beer.
Yeah.
So.
I might want a beer.
You might want a beer.
I might want a beer. And that's, I totally understand that too.
And as a grown adult.
As a grown adult, I would
you will be able to
partake responsibly. I
recognize
get
whether
that.
or not you should be
Yep.
getting behind a wheel or not,
I'm
right?
a grown adult.
You are.
So
Wait a minute, should we check with your wife first?
I mean, yeah, get Tina's
I don't
approval
know. I
first.
don't know that everybody, it's
But
not
that
even their
makes-
necessarily responsibility
that just
to let
makes
everybody
sense
be
to
a
me, you
grown
know?
adult.
I've been to bowling
Some
alleys
people are
with
not
my
grown
family. My
adults.
father has a beer, I have a Coke, or a Shirley Temple, you know, and with some popcorn. I mean, it doesn't seem nefarious to me. It doesn't, we're not running a,
We're providing a service.
I understand.
That's-
Yep.
It's an
Providing the service,
ancillary.
We
it's
see
an
any-
ancillary part of it. I get the food, I get the beverages. I'm just a little leery about alcohol sales, just because you are basically embedded in a residential neighborhood. That's where it comes down.
And it's not like it's gonna be open all the time. You know, right now, we only have, you know, we have our pro shop open 2 days a week. That's when it would be open, because that's when, you know, Saturdays and Sundays. It's not going to be, and we close at dusk. So it's not gonna be into the night. It's not gonna be into the night. We close at dusk.
I'm sorry, if I may, none of this is in their application, though. The application is they're expecting this board to carte blanche, just say, we're allowed to serve alcohol anytime from any structure in the trailer we install.
No, it
But
says there, it says.
Those details are
What
through
makes you think
another
that?
agency, another application.
But part of that is our job to put conditions on this.
Right.
And you also have the alcohol permitting authority, which is putting conditions on, or even choosing not to grant it. So this is a use permit that we are granting, and so.
And we understand, and we'll take up the liquor license issue with the select board, because it does have legality problems, but the impact on the neighborhood is all we're asking for the board to consider. And that impact can be different with a plan with so few details.
You don't even know what the truck looks like.
You know, Mike, there's another thing, for like for insurance, I think if they have special occasion, they can get a special event package for the day, or they're gonna have for a couple days, you can do that. So that could be one of the conditions also. If they can't get the alcohol, they can, always try to see if you can get an event pass. Like if they have competition for the day, if they can go to the insurance company and get an event plan, 1 day pass or 2 day pass, and they can show it to the board. I mean, 1 or 2 days, like 1 day license, just liquor license or something. I mean, I see it all the time, but you have to get the insurance, and then you can show it to the board.
And that's for a real food truck, not a trailer.
Right, so, but what I'm saying, there's conditions that can be,
All right, I'm gonna continue this here, we'll hear a motion to continue this to 8
So
PM
moved.
on September 7th. And we'll send a memo over to the Board of Health, and if they want to consider it beforehand, if they can consider it beforehand, they can offer their suggestions, and we'll take those up on September 7th before we close it and deliberate the decision.
That's fair.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sutton made the motion. I will second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Right on track.
I want to see the proof on that. That's it.
8:10.
8:10.
Master plan and
Pretty
housing
close.
process discussion.
You're about to get the Sutton motion.
No.
Handouts? All right.
What do we got? What do we got?
I just want to try to get some initial discussion of a structure of this master plan committee so that we can start getting people's,
Did you get my email?
requests. I did get your email. I got various
Happy
people's email.
birthday.
It's
a Word and Excel spreadsheet for you.
You had to go.
All right.
I'm so giving.
So
Take a minute break.
here's the, not dilemma, but here's, I think, the major point of discussion, right? You have a lot of boards and commissions and departments in town, many of which have, some degree of role in a master plan. You also have to deal with the idea that the bigger you get, the more problematic it is to deal with that many people and run it and make any sort of progress. So, I think that there's key representatives that need to be on it. I think because it's ultimately going to be a planning board decision, I think having 2 members of the planning board on the committee is appropriate, but obviously there has to be at least one planning board, member on it. I think, I don't think there's any question about that. I think you need someone from DPW, given the, infrastructure and transportation and all that. I think you need someone from conservation, in all likelihood. I think you need someone from Parks and Rec because of the scope of the master plan.
What about the Wildlife Federation?
When I find out what it is, I will.
Just ask. Yeah.
You probably need agriculture involved. I think that finance probably should have some role in it. And I know at least one finance committee member has requested a role in it. I think you need someone from economic development, potentially. And I say potentially because I think some of these, when you start to go into lakes and housing and EDC and CPC, some of those may be able to, if you have people who are doing more than one thing, you may be able to, like CPC is all appointed, so you may be able to take someone who's doing 2 things.
No, there's elected.
Not all appointed, but there's some appointed from other
There's a
boards.
lot
There's some overlap.
There's an overlap with the Ag Commission and Conservation
Correct.
too.
So I think you may be able to combine some of these. I'm not sure you want to go over 15 people.
Historical?
And I think, and I'm sorry, let me, I skipped 2, which is, I think, you could talk about historical, though historical has been gutted rather significantly and has brand new members. I'm not sure what people who
historical perspective they might bring.
I mean, let's think about that, but they have 3 members who haven't even sat in a meeting yet. And then you have a school representative, arguably, who could offer some potential input, whether it's school or school committee or whatever,
Board of Health?
I'm not sure the Board of Health has any significant role in it. They could be a consultant. You have police and fire, who I think would be consultants, and I've talked to Chief Anderson, who basically said that's what he did down in Granby when they did theirs. He, had some interactions 3 or 4 times and sort of reviewed things, but other than that, they didn't need anybody on the actual committee. So I think finding that line between someone who needs to be on the committee, someone who can be a consultant, maybe combining people who have dual roles, or at least can.
Or just email to the board, but if you have any input on our master plan, please send your suggestions over it.
Yep.
Think they necessarily need a representative there
Correct.
every.
So I think there's a line somewhere where you hit whether you need a representative or not. And I think you probably want 4 or 5 residents. I mean, if you're looking at a 15-member residents on there, you probably want someone who's a business owner in town, at least one. You probably want people from different parts of the community. You want someone from, Congamon. You want someone from, the west part of the town. You want someone from
development side.
Farm and gun show.
Marcus had put it between R20 and R40. Maybe you do that.
My suggestion for the 5 citizen members, that they would come from different housing or use zones. So we'd have two from the R40 zone.
So it depends upon your monetary
2 from the
income.
R20s. No, R40 is like 65% of the town. And then one from an industrial or business owner. You're not going to get them all in one area. That's a little different
R20 goes
approach to
R20 is the
criteria.
entire spectrum.
It's a different approach to a criteria, rather than picking somebody,
Yeah.
So
That's,
that's
in the know.
generally what I wanted to
You
sort
were talking
of try to
about
start to
time.
work through about, which ones are sort of, you need someone from that, and then where you start to get into the, and if we could talk about it for like 10, 15 minutes and try to get some degree of, at least move the ball forward a little bit, that would be great.
Well, DPW and water, right?
Well, that's the other thing, I sort of included all water, sewer, all that stuff under DPW, so whoever's,
Right, so-
coming from
But
DPW.
they are technically
So you're
commissions.
looking at 2 planning board members.
I think because it is our master plan and we're gonna be the ones, I think that's,
Well, everybody gets,
I'm sorry, but
gets
it's
to vote on
Marcus
it.
Phelps's baby.
Well, it's Marcus.
He's
um,
big man in charge over there.
What are we thinking about Jess and Dave over here?
I think they have
I
to
think
fight
they're-
it out to get.
They're
on
the
it.
future of the planning board, Dave.
The associate
future
member,
of
I'm
the
not allowed to
planning
do
board.
anything.
So,
And a select board member.
Sorry.
I like the wicked step.
so hold on, so let's,
So,
what are we talking for planning board? Do people want
I would
one, do
happily
people want
volunteer,
two?
Marcus and
I think
Dave.
2 is fine. I would volunteer.
You guys here are really eager about it.
Let's nominate Marcus Phelps and David Spina to represent the planning board on the master plan committee.
Okay.
So
I'll go along with that.
You okay with that?
Okay,
I love-
David,
Sure.
What?
I don't know, Jessica's the future of the planning board.
All right,
You will be hearing me
I know,
yell in
yes.
your ear.
Oh,
disagree.
that's
She would be
strange.
telling.
I'll be
Okay.
happy to
So-
represent the young parents in town, chicken raisers
Wait a
in
minute.
town.
so let's move on. So we got
Getting the
a select board,
voters
right?
coming,
I think you have to have one from the select board, so
Yes.
that's 3. So now DPW, right?
Yes,
DPW.
Right. Yep. All right. I think because of the master plan scope, Parks and Rec has to be on there. Yep.
yes.
So that's 5. What are we thinking with finance?
Is there a
That's a
crossover
challenge.
between finance and economic development committee by any chance? I know
No,
Amber
because-
Bach has expressed interest previously.
There is
right?
no crossover.
No.
Would finance, I mean, I don't
It
know.
was it?
How
Bethel?
active finance, I mean, they can certainly review and comment on whatever products we produce, but they're more implementation, aren't they? Rather than
Provide insights
visioning,
into the,
setting goals.
Person at the meeting saying, there's no money for something like that.
Well, hey, what are we,
I don't know.
how are we gonna make sure the growth,
That's what we got, when we said we
Aligns
wanted to
with
do the
the-
Well, then you got
financial.
the capital, you got your Capcom, the Capital Investment Committee.
Well, that's
What
gonna be
is
about,
that?
I mean,
What is that part?
I think they come from all different committees and that's
Okay,
part of finance, but
so that's a melding.
it has other committees. I mean, I just, the folks in town who are gonna have the broader picture of how things come together is
because
gonna
they have
be a
some
finance committee,
overview
but
of, yeah.
whether
tax
it's a
revenue and how all
consultant
that comes
role, I
from
suppose
where
that could
different elements,
be on the fence, right, as far as whether it's consultant or required.
I would keep that one out there a little bit, because I think we've got, like the Conservation Commission and the Agricultural Commission that.
Well,
We're-
you
we're
combine those
saying-
into one, I mean, is there anyone besides Marissa who's on both? I mean, it used to be Dennis, obviously, doing both, but now we don't have someone in that position.
I thought.
Hey, quick thing, speaking for the AgCom, I like to talk to Chris Pratt, but I'm thinking there could be one representative from conservation and agriculture.
It helps.
Whether it's Marissa or not, I'm not sure, but we work together, so.
No, I appreciate that, Bert, and that's, I was just trying to think of I know Marissa's on both, so obviously she has, but no, I appreciate that, so that,
So it's ConAg.
yeah.
Right, on ag.
Thanks for sticking on so late, Bert.
All right. So that's, all right, so what about,
The
did I
school.
mention lakes before? If I missed that, I
No, you
apologize.
didn't mention that.
Is there a crossover between the CPC or the Lake Commission?
I think there
and the
is,
Community preservation.
I mean, I know.
Chris
Pratt would be.
Chris Pratt, I think,
Deb
is-
Parath is
Jumps to my
on,
mind.
so it's on CPC and lakes. I know she's on lakes, she's on CPC, right?
Definitely on TPC, yeah.
Those
So you're
are
up to
two.
6. Well, you definitely want an economic development commission.
Well,
Again, it's a
I
question
mean,
of.
to me, that's Finance Committee, Economic
Yeah.
Development Commission, which,
Pick one.
you know,
well, but they both serve such different, like, isn't finance more like the
One's before and one's
practical?
after. I mean, that's,
And one, like.
one's development and one's application.
finance,
To get somebody to come in.
finance is an implementation
Yeah.
arm.
I mean,
Finance.
let me put- Terry, did you want to say something about finance, EDC?
Well, finance, we just make recommendations on the budget, basically. I mean, it's not, that's pretty much it.
Just point out that your chairwoman has expressed an interest in on it, so.
Yeah, I believe, I
Live in
think
the-
she's also on,
She lives in the R20 zone.
Well, there you are. Put her on.
So,
she's also on Capcom too, and I know she was interested in it, but I don't know if she's interested in it as a matter of being on the finance committee or whether she was just going in as, a person.
right.
Be a great double hat for her to wear, wouldn't it? A resident and resident member of the board of the commission.
Is it the R20 zone?
Yep. And I,
And comment on feasibility when it comes to finance.
sorry, so let's put that,
So EDC.
housing.
From an industrial restricted.
I had Housing Authority down there because a big part of the planning, at least the initial year or so, we're also doing a housing plan.
Yeah, but because it has a reasonably limited role in this town. I mean, I don't mind putting them on, but I'm just wondering whether they need to be as a member or whether they can be a consultant for that, especially heavy in that beginning part.
Yeah, well, they would be the people that would be telling us whether or
Correct.
not we need.
But other than, I'm not sure.
Do they
other than
manage,
that
they just
component of it.
manage the
They just
public
manage
housing?
the public
They manage
housing.
the public housing.
And I think they have some policy, role in it, but it's not, at least in Southwick right now, it's not a huge role. It doesn't mean that they couldn't, but it's just, I'm not sure that having them as more than a consultant is necessary, especially if we're trying to really, get some core people here and keep it somewhat smaller. I think they're at least one that could be put as a consultant.
Public school system, then.
I think that could be a consultant as well. But
And the 3 communities I looked at, it was either the superintendent or the administrator of the school system that was on the planning committee.
Who is the gentleman that runs the operations over there? Because I think that would be the person who knows the best about what may need to be added or changed. Like, he was in charge of making sure that the playground process was right and was involved in
School
the
system,
busing.
yeah, it's a huge part of the town.
Yeah, I can't imagine leaving it off.
That's the budget.
80%.
well, I guess then, I guess that's fair, but what are you thinking as far as the role? Are you thinking about an administrator from the school? Are you thinking about someone from the school committee? Are you thinking about a parent? Are you thinking, obviously you're gonna probably have some parents just generally, but what focus? Because they have different.
Well, I would like,
Focus on it,
I want the building guy there who could say to us, well, okay, if you guys are looking to increase the town population by this much, looking at what our buildings currently have to offer, if we will not be able to support that much growth in young persons, so like, those
So-
are the types of numbers and info I want.
You want me to email Stephen?
Yeah,
Presnell?
Presnell, yeah, there you go,
Yeah.
that's the
And-
guy's name.
And ask him.
Good luck with that.
I've always had great interactions with him. So.
I always
All right.
corrected his mistakes.
Are we
what are we
thinking
up
that,
to?
What are you
are we
doing
thinking that
retired?
school is, yes?
Yes,
Is that where
public
we're
school
at?
system.
Okay.
We're up to 8? No, what are we up to?
8.
Wow.
8, 9.
Well, it's gonna be 9, we gotta
1,
figure out the
2,
finance EDC.
3,
but,
4, 5, 6, yeah, 7, 8.
What else am I missing here? All right, so let's talk about.
So 8, what do we got? We got 7 left? Well, if we do 15.
Yep.
Which
It's a
is
big team.
max.
It's a big team.
Not everybody shows up, with every meeting. That's the challenge too.
Well, yeah, it's
All right.
yours, probably.
Especially when you keep the meetings.
So what about residents? What are we thinking for residents? I mean, do we think that there has to be a business owner?
I think it'd be
Why
helpful.
don't you have one that's a business and one that's a regular resident?
I think we're gonna have more than 2.
Yeah, I don't know, you're kicking me here about this zone thing, but I think we need to distribute people across the town, and they should be landowners,
No,
I
but
think.
so here's what I'd say is, I care a little less about the zones as I do about, and more about where, right? So R20 is going to be, look,
Spencer, you look where it is. You look where it is.
Is Lexington,
No,
Lauren,
no,
Deer
no.
Run, and it's
the
by the
lakes.
Congress, it's by,
It's
I'm
all
in
lakes
R20.
here.
Yeah.
R20 is all the whole.
What about getting somebody in here from the industrial restricted zone?
We are, right here.
But you also, so you have the lakes, right? And I think you can have someone from there. And I think, I'm not sure, if Linda wants to do it and she ends up to be the resident in the R20, I suppose, she lives behind me. So, if she wants to be there, then I suppose that gets represented.
Yep, so that's 2.
And I'm thinking you want folks who are a little bit different ways of going as far as.
Hands up in the audience.
Right.
Whoa.
You missed something?
We turn to look at one map. All of us
Hold on
are.
one second, let me just, so, if we potentially have, different sort of locations, whether it's in a development or, more.
And I
rural,
guess
if you will.
part of it is that we need to have a lot of cross-sectionality. We're not
Mm-hmm.
just talking about a cross-section of people across different zones, because then if
Right.
you have 4 public residents who are all 60, you're right, so I was gonna say 65
Yeah, you gotta look at the age,
you know.
structure too.
Distribution of ages and
That's a big,
whatever.
big pool.
Let's open, since people stayed here until 10:15. Let's get some.
That's because my child's on vacation.
Wow.
Continue this
Dory,
to
what-
the 7th?
I think you need to remember, this is a small town, so like, I live here, but my mom lives here, and my aunt lives here, and my cousin lives, I can see more of the town than just where I live. So it doesn't really matter where we live,
It's fair.
who we are. Like,
However,
there's 9,500
especially
people
when
here.
you have people living in certain different areas, sometimes the perspective is different, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
I think that.
So you want geographic,
As we were
geographic
reminded,
difference?
Not me.
I grew up on the lakes, I
zonal,
grew up over
geographic,
on the
But
farm.
you're hitting all the.
But of course,
you're
we
hitting
can-
all the.
some of that just from
the
the
areas,
right.
but not everybody's
You gotta
gonna
be
be like
careful
that,
of
right?
those
So
deck with
you may hit the areas and you may cross them off or check the
No,
boxes.
but I mean.
It doesn't mean you
Well,
shouldn't have the boxes. like I said.
Sorry, I'm
Somebody
gonna,
like yourself,
you know me.
You don't have to have someone who's.
I don't know when
living
to keep
at
my
the
mouth
lake
shut sometimes,
now.
right? Or I don't know how to butter to make it sound good. Okay?
All right.
To make sure that it comes from all aspects of the community, not just certain income levels, as we reminded time and time again, that some of the things that we do on this board.
Mhm.
Who-
Diane?
who-
I'm sorry.
Who supplies the most here? Who supplies the most there? We need representation from each one of those. Okay.
There was a comment about a business owner resident. I think that has to be 2 different thoughts.
No, I think having one business, someone who's a resident, who owns a business in town, I think would be a useful person to have on there.
Correct, but not as, if you have room for 5 residents, that doesn't become 2, doesn't cover 2 spaces.
Oh, no, correct. That's one individual. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. I think that's right.
And I hope you're going to like put this out to the town to volunteer and not go out and choose people.
So what we're gonna do, and I want to try to get as much structure as we can to this. After this, we will put out a request to submit they wish to be on it. Now, I think what I didn't say at the beginning of this, which I should say, is this is going to take a couple of years to do. So people need to, put in some
Set up the
time.
committee? No.
No, to actually.
Finish the meeting.
Well, maybe we should retake Marcus being on this.
Definitely.
So we're going to put everything
might not
out
be
there,
down
make
for
sure
dinner.
people fully understand what it is, but we'll put a request out there and get in names and, try to get some information from them and then talk about it at the next meeting as far as individuals. I'm just trying to get a bit of a structure so that we can kind of at least think through it over the next couple of weeks before the next meeting.
Should we come up with the categories? So say, hey, if you do volunteer, please, could you provide us, obviously your address, your name or something, but,
Background.
your
I mean,
age,
just-
your background,
right,
your,
correct. No, I
all
think
that
that's
kind of,
right.
I don't know
Because I think that's
what
like-
those little criteria might be, your, I don't know.
No, I think that's right, because I think there's going to be, and
Explain why you're interested in joining.
No, I think that's-
But then you're not gonna, but if we're trying to get a diverse group of folks in terms of.
And the thing is, we have 7 slots. We have 7 slots left. So we should be flexible that maybe, we get 5 and leave 2 until we.
I don't think you need
Really?
15, but I just think you need to, I think that's probably a cap. I don't think you need to absolutely get to that, but I mean, I think.
It's okay if we have less.
Right. Corey, did you have?
Well, I was just, do I have to Corey Rowland said on the board. But I was thinking too, that just because of what I mentioned to you about the certain experience I have, is you have your core team, but then you could even have some residents come in and be in that consultant role. And the example I'm thinking of and why I stayed till 10:20 is I have 25 years of strategic planning experience, and I'm also have an advanced certification in design thinking, where I've led probably 45 group ideation sessions to think about their future state. So in other words, I'd be happy to come in and get you going, but that doesn't mean I want to be a core, necessarily a core team member for 2 years. But, and I was on Economic Development Commission a long time.
You made that great PowerPoint on the Verizon.
Yeah, it took me 10 hours. Our econ team is responsible for the Welcome to Southwick signs. That was our big curriculum. But anyway, my point is that, so think about that, especially if you're thinking about, different zones or different backgrounds or whatever, but also there may be some of us who we bring a that we don't necessarily want to take up if you're 7.
Is that Corey Rowland?
Uh-oh.
Gary was my neighbor for 14 years.
Hi!
Doug, did you have something or?
No, I think that's a very good point, and I think Dave has a good point. I was going to suggest one of the ways, because I saw someone was making motions like this, is we have 3 precincts in town that does distribute population quite a bit. That might be one way, as people submit a letter of interest, we know by map what precinct they're in. But I think the letter of interest and how you can contribute, because even if, I don't know that people want to necessarily sign up for a 2-year deal. Maybe you're going to have turnover on this board, even amongst the residents over a 2-year period.
Yep.
That list could be 40 people on the inside cover page of thanks to all the people who helped, and people are going to come and go. So if you get more than 5 or 6, that's great. You could also have alternates or associates on that committee as you go forward. I was trying to keep notes with the ones that you mentioned. The only one that I would think that you might want to get on there is a member of the Water Commission, besides DPW, but I don't know. It is such a strategic piece. And I don't mean, the Board of Selectmen are your sewer commissioners, so you get that. If you get a selectman, you have a sewer commissioner, but as part of the visioning process and a master plan, as we've seen with other potential projects, utilities are a concern, whether it's power, water. Those are going to be strategic parts. As much as, and the school also, I think is, I think they have to be part of it, because if there's impactful development, it may put demands around the
right
school.
now is nobody in a position
of any, anything that could help you is resident here. They don't hire people from Southwick.
But they don't have, I mean, for this, I don't think I think they can play a role without being a resident of Southwick as long as they're holding that role in town. So.
That's a pretty good point.
Like the town.
Can I say a few things?
In attendance at these meetings, potentially.
Yeah, John will be there, right, John?
I believe there's a member of EDC who's not a member of town, but they're a business owner in town, so they're a stakeholder.
Not getting my
So
thing
from that
fixed up.
perspective, I think you can limit that, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's
sorry.
totally up to, this board as to how they want to.
The other thing is,
Yeah, well, that's what I think.
A
would be
school
better,
committee
school
member.
committee member
Oh,
for the school. But any information that they
Like-
need to have, they should be
I gotta
able
look
to
at
get
mine.
from that office.
It's gonna be 95
Because I
under
always
air
did it.
conditioning.
We'll put the request to them and let them.
the other
Well,
thing
if
is
they
to
wanna
keep
send
in
over.
perspective, we only have $25,000, and we're gonna put out a request for proposals. When we put that together, I think we're only gonna get through visioning and goals as to what the deliverables would be. So this committee would be working on that and then looking ahead as to how we move into implementation in the next year. Yeah, and then we have up to $25,000 to do a housing plan, which has to be kept separate to the extent that we're accountable to the Community Preservation Committee, since it's the Community Preservation Act that's funding the housing plan. So it'll fit together, but right now, we do keep it sort of separate, I guess.
Some of that 800,000 grant that the select board is going to be, they're having a public hearing on it.
Community Development Block Grant?
Right, can
Oh.
some of that money be used?
No.
It's not, sorry,
Oh.
it's not CDBG money, that's ARPA money I think he's referring to. And I think we have a request out to the CAO to see what the categories of spend that it can be used. And I'm not speaking for you, I just think that I don't want to conflate CDBG money, which is one thing, and we had talked about last night was ARPA money.
Oh, there's some other funding? Oh,
And there's specific categories that can be used, infrastructure, this, that, the other. We're trying to get a
Oh, wow.
more detailed list than
Yeah.
one category.
cool.
Is that the one that's going to be addressed at the public hearing that the select board is having?
That's good knowledge.
Yeah,
Trying to make sure we're
it's
talking
in
about the same
paper.
or different, so we're talking about the CDBG hearing that's coming up?
That has
Okay,
specific
thank you.
criteria.
Yeah, but there's.
Those are low
Is
income.
that the money,
Yeah.
that's the money
I
I'm
don't
talking
know.
about.
I'm not sure, that's why I'm trying to be clear what we're talking about.
Oh, well.
The CDB is-
So we got seven extra folks.
All right,
Doug, did you guys reconstitute the high-speed internet yet?
We did.
yep.
Are you the select board member on that again?
I am. We want to be honest?
If I could cross to your property, I would do it, but I also think that that's important to include in our master plan going forward.
I will get that for you.
It's
Probably be good to post that on.
We are gonna put, yeah, no, there's been other things going on, but I got it probably the end of last week.
Just so people know what they might be getting into.
Oh,
Yep,
Going on the
yep.
tractor.
oh,
All right, any other boards, commissions that we need to talk about? And all right,
We don't close this meeting, it's gonna be the cemetery commission.
sure.
oh, we should,
Two from
What?
the planning board,
You can't do.
One from the select board.
What to do.
one from Parks and Rec,
Hey,
one
Need
from
them all.
Ag,
95.
Conservation
I'm
combined,
gonna have a long day.
one from the district,
I'm coming up with
one from the lakes, I believe,
Oh,
and
no, we
CD,
didn't-
or,
we didn't say
and.
that. Did we
Did
say
we not
that?
talk about that?
No, we didn't
Lake
talk
management
about
is a good one, though.
No.
Yeah, EDC and DPW.
Well, CPC/Lakes
Did I skip
Management.
DPW?
was
We were
what-
gonna try to get combined.
No, you got
So put DPW on there.
Remember, I said community preservation, lake management, so with Chris Pratt, I think we called.
I thought
There
we
was
were-
somebody
yeah.
else that crossed on it.
I mean, well, is someone from the lakes need to be on there or no?
I think Chris Pratt or somebody like him that could,
Well, they have
Chris Pratt on the
the,
lakes?
I don't know.
his
not-
wife
not-
is the
His
president
wife
of.
is, or,
No, she's.
We got
Citizens.
Citizens Restoring Congamon, we have the Lake
Well, let
Management
me-
Committee.
Whether
So we
it's,
have two.
I mean, someone like Michelle who's on those, or Chris or Deb, I think can
Cross.
bring the lakes and,
There's a big problem.
yeah, so let's,
So lakes.
You want to make sure that there's a separation
But
too,
there's
between
also-
a resident of the lake area as well as somebody who's going to represent the official
right.
lake maintenance.
I think Michelle's had a big role in that. I think Deb has had a big role in that. I know they have had a big role in that. So both of them would be
Lake
appropriate
person.
for
Lake
that.
person.
Lake person.
Incredible Mr. Olympic.
A lake person.
Okay, so that's 7, school district 8. You
Oh,
got 8,
that's
Doug?
9. I got 9 now.
Yeah, the only one I had on the list that you didn't have on your list is water.
I'm up to 10. Finance.
Well, we didn't do we didn't put finance on.
So we
Yeah,
got to figure out,
You got 9 right now.
yeah, you got 9, including the lake person.
I mean, let's also, like, before you write it down, it doesn't make it final.
no,
either.
but I want to
Like,
reach out to people. I want to reach out to people. And so
Well, the key thing is to get the general public.
I understand, we're going to do that part, but I also want to, because I wanted the next meeting to sort of get this together. So, and something's going to leave in a minute. So, and he has to get a motion. So, 2 planning board members, select board member, DPW.
Yep.
Yes.
Parks and Rec.
Yep.
Yes.
Ag Conservation.
Yes.
Lakes, CPC.
Yes.
School District.
Yes.
Okay, that's 8.
No, you forgot economic development.
Economic development in there?
Economic Development, Finance. I'm not sure we
Yeah,
figured
I'm
that out
actually
yet. I thought
looking
those
toward
were
economic
sort of.
development.
Yeah, but economic development, I would say.
I'm sorry?
Don't need finance till the end.
Yeah. Economic development, they're the supposedly the
You have a
future,
comment?
futuristic.
Since you're sitting right there.
Michael is here.
All right, so would be,
We're the ones who provide you with the population and the income data and all sorts of other stuff. It makes sense.
and you said Amber, I don't know if you wanted to be on it, but said Amber at least
I
had
think Amber
some.
Bach has repeatedly said in different public hearings that she would be interested.
Repeatedly,
So
she
at least
has.
there's interest
Yeah,
from the
on a
EDC.
couple of different hearings.
I think she'd be great at it.
So EDC, whether finance has any
And if
role,
they don't have an official role, Deb Baffle will represent
Linda.
Linda Baffle.
Housing, we'll figure out some sort of consultant role. School committee,
Yeah, you're at 9.
School
consultant.
School administrator
Public
slash
school
school
district.
committee member that can represent the needs of the school district and how that might impact the town of Southwick as we grow strategically in the future. Did you get all that? Wow.
Somebody suggested a member of the school board, Jessica. As
School
opposed to
Board,
the
committee, that's why I said
Yeah.
board member.
Those are 2
or-
very different people in my mind, but
Mhm.
that's fine. We'll figure that out. All right, so that gives us 10.
9.
That gives us 10. And I'm sorry, with a business owner, that gives us 10.
Oh, well, you business owner.
Thank
Okay,
you,
yeah.
sorry. Can't read my own writing at this point in the
Big
night.
business, small business,
And
medium
then that
business.
leaves, residents that we'll try to figure out
Residents,
going
ideally.
forward. So we'll send out an email or a posting and whatever else, requesting information, names, addresses,
Name, address.
Background,
Why you want to be.
why you want to be on there kind of thing, and sort of, we can talk about we can take them in, distribute them, talk about them at the next meeting. Okay?
Should we apply as a business owner or apply as a
You
resident?
can apply however you wish. I think you just give us
Just
the
say, I'm a
information
business
and we
owner,
can figure it out.
resident.
That's sort of,
If you.
that's what I'd say.
The more
Don't-
boxes you can check, the
I think
better.
if you just, you can hit a bunch of boxes, you can even tell us that you hit a bunch of boxes, but, we'll try to figure it out and get the best composition as we can.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah,
Terry, as far as the finance committee goes, again, if you have Linda on there, she could be the one that goes to bat for you for getting the funds, because that's the thing that we do.
and I have a meeting, that I have an email out to Linda to meet with her and talk about this stuff, so I'll talk with her and we'll figure that out.
Whether somebody has to be on the board or on that committee or not, but if you want the finance committee to be behind you, you just need to, keep them
We want you behind what?
Yeah, that's good.
Whether you're on it or not, but that's fine. No, I'll talk to her about it and we'll, thanks, Terry. Mr. Sutton,
I already did all my
Make a
homework.
motion to close the meeting.
second.
Second.
I'll second.
So you guys want to?
David
favor, say aye.
Second, aye.
Opposed, abstaining, all right.